Chapter 1244. Everyone looked at each other, unsure of how to respond to Yan Qingyi's suggestion. So many good novels. Tang Zheng looked deeply at the Fuxi statue and said thoughtfully, since the Fuxi statue is so important, leaving it in the gate of heaven will only bring more harm than good. Why don't we move it away? No. Yan Qingyi and Empyrean Fairy objected at the same time. Seeing the two of them speaking at the same time, the others were curious and asked, why not? The two of them looked at each other and Empyrean Fairy spoke first. This ancestor statue is a sacred object of the Fu clan and is very important to us. How can we move it? Yan Qingyi nodded and said, that is one of the reasons. Another important reason is that the statue has already merged with the Gate of Heaven's aura. Once the statue is moved, the Gate of Heaven's aura will change and the protective layer outside the Gate of Heaven will collapse. Anyone can enter the Gate of Heaven. The Dead Sea outside the Gate of Heaven was caused by the change in the gate's aura. It became a natural protective barrier for the Gate of Heaven. It was like a no trespassing warning sign hanging high up. Tang Zheng didn't understand and asked, without the statue, the Gate of Heaven has no other function and no protective power. What's the problem? Yan Qingyi looked at Tang Zheng meaningfully and said, although the Gate of Heaven has lost its original importance, once the statue is moved away, the aura will change and everything within a 10,000-kilometer radius will be affected by the Gate of Heaven's purine energy. When that time comes, this area will become a true land of death. No living creature will be able to survive. Can you imagine how many lives will be lost? Within a 10,000-kilometer radius, not only were there underwater creatures, there were also residents on the nearby islands. On the way here, they had passed by a few islands with residents. Moreover, these islands were within the Gate of Heaven's radiation. Tang Zheng understood and nodded in agreement, that makes sense. These people were not cruel and merciless people. They would not watch as innocent people died. Then we can only seal the divine gate. Tang Zheng agreed, and the others naturally did not have any objections. Everyone exited the mysterious underground space, leaving only the statue of Fuxi standing there quietly. When they returned to the deep tunnel of the divine gate, Tang Zheng saw the corpses on the ground and turned pale with fright. What's going on? He still didn't know that a battle of life and death had taken place outside while he was rescuing people. With just a few words, they reconstructed the scene. Tang Zheng's heart immediately sank. He never thought that when he was rescuing people, they would experience such a tragic life and death battle. So many good novels. His eyes were spitting fire as he gnashed his teeth. Ji Wuxiang, you're really like a haunting ghost. You've even become so powerful. The Empyrean Fairy had exchanged many moves with Ji Wuxiang, so she had the deepest impression of him. She said with a heavy heart, Ji Wuxiang has upgraded the celestial chess, his power is even greater than before. He definitely cannot be underestimated. Is that so? Tang Zheng understood the celestial chess better than anyone else, so he naturally knew how extraordinary the celestial chess was. He was extremely shocked when he heard that Ji Wuxiang had upgraded the celestial chess and could even threaten the Empyrean Fairy. Looks like it's not as simple as upgrading the celestial chess. He muttered to himself thoughtfully. Hearing this, the others all looked at him worriedly. The Empyrean Fairy continued, however, there's no need to worry for now. Father's words are enough to build a barrier in his heart. If he can't overcome this barrier and overcome the inner demons, then he won't be a threat. Hearing this, Tang Zheng still did not let down his guard. He understood Ji Wuxiang better than anyone else. This person was a peerless genius, and his willpower and determination were incomparable to ordinary people. It was still unknown whether the hurdle built by the Celestial Emperor could stump him. However, this was something that had yet to happen, so it was useless for him to worry about it. He calmed himself down and looked at Feng Xinyang's family. Seeing that Yi Dingdang had recovered, the family happily reunited. Even the heavily injured Yi Tianlei regained some spirit. His daughter's recovery was like a shot of adrenaline to him. The group of people walked out of the celestial gate together. With a rumble, the celestial gate closed heavily, sealing all the secrets. However, this matter was not over yet. They still had to seal the celestial gate. Yan Qingyi leisurely walked in front of the huge door. Looking up, she seemed extremely small. The others looked at her in surprise, not knowing what she was going to do. Everyone knew that they had to seal the celestial gate. They originally thought that it would be the Empyrean Fairy or Tang Zheng who would do it. Could it be that Yan Qingyi was going to replace them? Tang Zheng and the Empyrean Fairy looked at each other. They had noticed that Yan Qingyi's temperament and aura had changed quite a bit compared to before. They originally thought that it was because she had inherited Fuxi's Dao intent, so they did not pay too much attention to it. This was because there was neither the flow of a cultivator's true qi throughout her body, nor the circulation of a martial artist's inner strength. She was still a weak person. When they saw her standing in front of the celestial gate, the others naturally found it strange. "What are you going to do?" Tang Zheng asked directly. Yan Qingyi said without even turning her head, "Seal the celestial gate." "You can seal the celestial gate?" Tang Zheng was skeptical. The corners of Yan Qingyi's mouth curled into a mysterious smile. She did not answer and walked toward Tang Zheng's celestial gate. The others were shocked by this scene. Pairs of eyes opened wide and stared straight at her, wanting to see what she was going to do. Suddenly, she stopped in her tracks and bent down to pick up a stone, placing it in a certain spot. Huh? Everyone's expression was a bit strange. What was the use of her unusual action? It was just a few inconspicuous stones. Tang Zheng and the Empyrean Fairy looked at each other. Even with their cultivation and knowledge, they could not see any clues. Tsk tisk, interesting. The inner demon's voice suddenly sounded. Tang Zheng was shocked and hurriedly asked, "What's going on? What did you find?" The inner demons laughed and said, "I'm very curious about what Fuxi's Dao intent is. It can actually change a person so much." Tang Zheng did not understand what the inner demons meant and asked, "Did you find something big?" The inner demons were not people who spoke without thinking. Hearing what he said, he must have seen some clues. "Of course, who am I? How could such a little trick escape my eyes?" The inner demons boasted. After a pause, the inner demons continued, "Look at the stones she placed. Did you find anything mysterious?" Tang Zheng narrowed his eyes and carefully observed, but still found nothing. "You're really stupid. Although those stones are ordinary stones, their positions are very strange. I suspect that she's setting up a large array to seal the celestial gate." The inner demons said impatiently. "Large array? She's not a cultivator. How can she set up an array?" Tang Zheng asked in confusion. The inner demons sighed and said, "It seems like you're really stupid. Tian Chanzi must have misled you. Who said that you need to be a cultivator to set up an array? Once you have the right time and the right place, an ordinary person can also set up an array. It's just that most people don't know about it. It's not so coincidental that you have the right time and the right place. Is that so?" Tang Zheng's eyes were opened. He was really misled by Tian Chanzi. "Of course it's like that. Do you think I'm wrong?" The inner demons were indignant. They were somewhat displeased with Tang Zheng's questioning. Tang Zheng did not doubt the inner demons. He did not need to be mysterious about this kind of question. She inherited Fuxi's Dao intent. She has the perfect grasp of the right time and the right place. Not to mention ordinary people, I think you're not as good. The inner demons mocked. Tang Zheng did not mind at all. He openly admitted, "I've been comprehending the Dao since I was young. Fuxi's Dao intent is also the Dao of heaven and earth. It's in the same vein as the Dao she comprehended. So it's normal for her to surpass me. You're quite open-minded. Take your time and watch. This is really getting more and more interesting. If I wasn't left with only a wisp of my soul, I would really be interested in exploring Fuxi's statue." The inner demon said thought-provokingly. "You're someone who came before Fuxi. Don't tell me you're still coveting his Dao intent?" Tang Zheng asked, puzzled. You're also a cultivator. Don't you know that the new generation excels the old? Although I'm an ancient person, it's not impossible for the future generation to surpass me. Only by learning humbly can you go further. The inner demon kept on talking, as if it was really a humble and obedient student, which made Tang Zheng's jaw drop. He did not ridicule the inner demons. He was just shocked. How powerful was Fuxi that he could make the inner demon's attitude change so much? While they were talking, Yan Qingyi stopped and stood quietly in front of the heavenly gate. The others looked at her in confusion. They asked, "What's going on?" Yan Qingyi did not say a word. She quietly looked at the heavenly gate. The others also gradually fell into silence and looked at the heavenly gate at the same time. But after looking at it for a long time, they still could not see anything different. Suddenly, the corners of Yan Qingyi's mouth curled up into a smile. A trace of energy surged out from the gate of heaven. Then, the ordinary stones instantly blossomed with light, and then quickly retracted. An invisible wave of energy spread out in all directions. The others looked at this change in horror. In the blink of an eye, they did not see Yan Qingyi do anything. How could such a big change happen? No one could say for sure. Tang Zheng immediately understood the problem with the array that the inner demons had mentioned. It was true that one did not have to be a cultivator to set up an array. Without a doubt, what Yan Qingyi had set up was an array. Moreover, it was a large array that could not be underestimated. Relying on the time and place, it naturally activated the large array. There was no need for anyone to be involved. As long as the heavenly gate did not fall, or the energy contained in the heavenly gate did not decline, this array would always exist. Although the heavenly bed in the heavenly gate was destroyed, it contained a lot of purine energy that floated in the air and shrouded the heavenly gate. This large array relied on this energy to create a large array. The exquisiteness of the array was far from what an ordinary person could compare to. Tang Zheng had been studying arrays for some time. He could not help but feel ashamed of his inferiority. The surging energy gradually calmed down, but everything in front of his eyes had undergone a drastic change. Chapter 1245. The scene in front of him changed. No pop-up ads, the huge divine gate had disappeared into thin air. Everything was gone, leaving only a flat ground. It was as if the gate had never existed in the first place. Illusion. Tang Zheng blurted out. He had used a similar spell before, so he blurted it out subconsciously. No. The inner demons immediately denied his judgment. The Empyrean fairy's eyes lit up. She hesitated for a moment and shook her head. It's not an illusion. Although illusions are powerful and can confuse people's vision, this is clearly not an illusion. It's as if the divine gate has really disappeared into thin air. The Empyrean fairy's vision was clearly better than Tang Zheng's. Tang Zheng was startled. His expression changed as he asked, "You're saying that the divine gate has really disappeared?" He immediately channeled his energy, trying to capture the divine gate's existence. However, he tragically found that there was no trace of it. It seemed as if the divine gate had really disappeared into thin air. The illusion only obscured people's vision. The thing was still in the same place. However, everything in front of them was the divine gate had disappeared. Not to mention Tang Zheng, even the Empyrean fairy could not compare to this kind of divine power. Hearing the two's discussion, Yan Qingyi said calmly, "With this kind of seal, ordinary people can't even get close to the divine gate. The divine gate is the safest." "Is that so? Doesn't that mean we can't get close to the divine gate either?" The Empyrean fairy had complicated feelings about the divine gate. Seeing that she was also cut off from the divine gate, she had mixed feelings. Yan Qingyi understood the meaning behind her words, but she was unmoved. Yes, in order to ensure the safety of the divine gate, no one can get close to it. The Empyrean fairy raised her eyebrows, and a murderous aura surged out. She asked in a stern voice, "Am I still a threat to the Elysium?" Yan Qingyi did not answer, but it was equivalent to a tacit agreement. The other people's expressions changed greatly. They didn't expect that Yan Qingyi would dare to not give face to the Empyrean fairy. The atmosphere suddenly became delicate. Tang Zheng did not expect that Yan Qingyi would suddenly become so unreasonable. She was like a completely different person from before. Could it be that a change in strength could cause such a huge change in a person? Seeing that the two of them were at each other's throats, ready to erupt at any moment, he hurriedly walked between the two of them and mediated, "Calm down, there must be a mistake in this. Qing Yi, the gate of heaven is the secret ground of the Fu clan. The Empyrean fairy is the daughter of the Emperor of Heaven, how could she be a threat to the gate of heaven? You should tell her how to enter the gate of heaven." The Empyrean fairy held back her anger. Her breathing became heavier as she stared at Yan Qingyi. A good novel. If it wasn't for the fact that her father was in her body, with her temper, she would have already attacked. When Yan Qingyi heard this, he calmly looked at Tang Zheng and said with a straight face, "There is no absolute secret in this world. Once you tell a second person, then there will definitely be a third person who knows. To be on the safe side, I will not tell her." "Are you doubting me?" The Empyrean fairy's eyes turned red. She had never been wronged like this before. This was too much. Yan Qingyi was unmoved and said, "I'm not doubting you. I'm just ensuring the safety of the gate of heaven." No one expected that Yan Qingyi would be so stubborn. In a moment, the atmosphere became even more delicate. Yan Luyun saw that the Empyrean fairy was about to explode and his heart trembled. He didn't think that his aunt would be so domineering. However, he was also very nervous. He quickly persuaded in a low voice, "Aunt, we're not outsiders. Can there be an exception?" Yan Qingyi looked at him indifferently and refused, "No." Yan Luyun was stunned. He angrily stuck out his tongue and swallowed the rest of his words. As Yan Qingyi's relative, he also noticed that his aunt had changed a lot. She wasn't so stubborn or unreasonable before. Tang Zheng let out a long sigh. He didn't think that his mediation would be useless. He helplessly looked at Yan Qingyi and was speechless. The Empyrean fairy walked step by step towards Yan Qingyi and said, "Yan Qingyi, my father and you share the same body. I should be thanking you. However, your actions are too much. I can't even get close to the gate of heaven. You actually think that I'm a threat to the gate of heaven. This is a huge provocation and humiliation. I can't accept it." The Empyrean fairy spoke very clearly. She didn't hold back her anger. Yan Qingyi didn't back down at all. She stared at the Empyrean fairy and didn't say anything. However, her meaning was obvious. She definitely wouldn't let the Empyrean fairy get close to the gate of heaven. Whoosh! The Empyrean fairy rushed out. Her figure flashed and she was as fast as lightning. She didn't want to hurt Yan Qingyi. After all, the two of them hadn't reached a point where they had to fight to the death. She was prepared to punish Yan Qingyi properly. She wanted to teach her a lesson and let her know who was the one who could call the shots. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. Yan Qingyi actually dared to go against the Empyrean fairy. If the Empyrean fairy was angry, wouldn't she be in trouble? Yan Qingyi didn't back down. Instead, she stared at the Empyrean fairy with bright eyes. The Empyrean fairy was about to hit her. Yan Qingyi gently moved to the side. Her movements were somewhat clumsy and slow. However, she narrowly avoided the Empyrean fairy's attack. At that moment, the Empyrean fairy was stunned. She didn't expect that her sure-kill attack would miss. The Empyrean fairy was very clear about her own strength. If Tang Zheng had dodged her attack, she wouldn't have been so surprised. However, her opponent was Yan Qingyi, who didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. The Empyrean fairy's gaze turned cold. She was certain that this was definitely a coincidence. She quickly changed her attack and moved as fast as lightning. Not to mention Yan Qingyi, even Tang Zheng couldn't handle this series of changes. The Empyrean fairy was also furious. That was why her attack was so fierce. Tang Zheng also saw this clearly. He wanted to stop the two of them, but was stopped by the inner demons. Don't worry about it. Although Fu Yao's attack is fierce and most people won't be able to dodge it, I don't think it will work on Yan Qingyi. Look at her expression. It's as if she's taking a stroll in the park. She doesn't seem to be panicking at all. Does this look like she's about to be at a disadvantage? The inner demon's words woke Tang Zheng up. His pupils shrank as he stared straight at Yan Qingyi. Sure enough, Yan Qingyi was calm and composed. She didn't look like someone who was facing a life and death threat. She was too calm. Instead, she looked like she had victory in her hands and was full of confidence. Yan Qingyi quietly watched the Empyrean Fairy's thunderous attack arrive. Suddenly, she tilted her body slightly. The attack just happened to brush past her. She wasn't hurt at all. Ah, there was a scream from the crowd. Once could be a coincidence, but twice was absolutely impossible. It could only be said that Yan Qingyi did it deliberately. The Empyrean Fairy couldn't hurt her at all. This was too shocking. Who was Xian Envy of the Ninth Heavens, and who was Yan Qingyi? The two of them were so different. How did she manage to do all this? Huge question marks appeared in everyone's hearts. They couldn't figure out the mystery. Tang Zheng and the Empyrean Fairy couldn't figure it out either. Yan Qingyi's movements looked like a beginner's. They were very clumsy, but she was able to avoid the Empyrean Fairy's attack. All of this was full of contradictions, but it really happened. Yan Qingyi saw the crowd's reaction. Her expression was calm. She could do all this because she had something to rely on. It could even be said that she had confidence. When the Empyrean Fairy attacked her, a picture appeared in her mind. That was the location and trajectory of the Empyrean Fairy's next attack. Foresight. This was what she relied on. In the past, her prophecy technique was used to predict things that would happen a long time in the future. Moreover, it was discontinuous fragments or pictures. However, ever since that incident, everything had changed drastically. The prophecy technique had changed. It couldn't immediately predict things that would happen a long time in the future. However, it could predict things that would happen in the future, and it was very accurate. Especially when she was facing a life and death crisis, she focused all her attention. Those pictures were vivid and lively, just like a movie. She used this to accurately predict the Empyrean Fairy's attack path. In the world of martial arts, only speed was invincible. When she could predict the opponent's attack path first, she was in a completely invincible position. Even if she didn't have the strength to truss a chicken, she could easily avoid the Empyrean Fairy's fierce attacks. This was simply a skill that defied the natural order. It was unheard of that anyone had mastered it. Yan Qingyi put it into practice and found that it was very useful. Ripples appeared in her heart. In fact, the Yan family was most worried about her safety. She rarely left the house, so her safety could be guaranteed. However, this was not because she had the ability to protect herself. There would always be regrets, and sometimes it could even be a fatal weakness. Now, Yan Qingyi had completely made up for this weakness. She was like a complete prophet. The Empyrean Fairy stopped attacking, discouraged. She was a smart person. She already knew that no matter how she attacked, she couldn't really defeat her opponent. This was a strong feeling of frustration and excitement. She resisted the mixed feelings and asked in a low voice, "How did you do all this?" The others also pricked up their ears. They really wanted to know the secret behind it. How could Yan Qingyi tell the truth? She said calmly, "This is the effect of Dao insight." She pushed all the blame to Fuxi's Dao insight. Everyone knew that Fuxi's Dao insight was very profound. With so many unforeseen events, it didn't attract too much attention. The Empyrean Fairy didn't give up and asked Tang Zheng, "Is what she said true?" Tang Zheng stammered and really didn't know how to answer. In the end, he said helplessly, "In any case, I don't have her ability." Tang Zheng couldn't see through Yan Qingyi at all. However, there was one thing that he was sure of. Although he had inherited Fuxi's Dao insight, he would be hard-pressed to deal with the Empyrean Fairy's sharp attacks. He wouldn't be as relaxed as Yan Qingyi, as if nothing mattered. After hearing Tang Zheng's answer, the Empyrean fairy asked with a livid expression, "Did you hear that?" Yan Qingyi was unmoved and said indifferently, "Everyone's situation is different. Fushi's Tao insight is extraordinary and has many miraculous aspects. What's there to be surprised about?" Chapter 1246. No matter how conflicted the Empyrean fairy was, or how suspicious the others were, if Yan Qingyi didn't reveal the truth, the others couldn't force her. They looked at her resentfully with mixed feelings. Yan Qingyi looked at the Empyrean fairy and said, "Don't worry, your father is still in my body. What's the point of worrying about the gate of heaven?" The Empyrean fairy looked at her in a daze, her gaze fluctuating. In the end, she had no choice but to give up. Although her cultivation was high, there were times when she couldn't do anything. Tang Zheng didn't have the intention to get to the bottom of the matter. Seeing both sides compromise, he was relieved. The few of them returned along the original path. Looking at the messy pile of rocks, they couldn't help but think of the giant stone man. Without a doubt, this was the effect of the purine energy in the gate of heaven, just like the sea of death around them. But when they returned to the disembarkation point, they found that the ship had been reduced to pieces, scattered all over the ground. "Our ship!" Yan Luyun was the first to cry out in alarm. He rushed over in a big stride, only to see a scene of devastation. "Where are the crew members?" he cried out in alarm. The crew members were all elites that he had carefully selected. If they were sacrificed, he couldn't absolve himself from the blame. The others' expressions changed greatly. If so many people died because of them, no one would feel good. Without a doubt, all of this was done by Ji Wuxiang. He didn't manage to obtain the secret of the gate of heaven, but he did this to a group of innocent people. He was simply heartless. "Young Master Yan." Suddenly, a voice pulled everyone back from their anger. They saw a group of people walking out from behind the reef in the distance, trembling in fear. "Captain!" Yan Liuyun's pupils shrank. He was pleasantly surprised. He recognized the captain at the front at a glance, as well as the other familiar faces of the crew members. The captain was scared. He patted his chest and said, "Young Master Yan, you're finally here. You really scared us to death." Although he had already guessed it, Yan Luyun couldn't help but ask, "What happened?" The crew members tried to reconstruct the scene at that time. It turned out that after they left and entered the Divine Gate, the crew members stayed on the ship. The dangers of Elysium were unpredictable. After the number of people increased, there were many unknowns. Moreover, the crew members were ordinary people. If they saw too many magical things, it would not do them any good. Instead, it would easily cause trouble. In the end, they unanimously decided to leave the crew behind and wait for their return on the shore of the Divine Gate. He never expected that the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Not long after they disembarked, Ji Wuxiang's ship arrived. When the captain saw the ship from afar, he immediately realized that something was wrong. All the ships in the Sea of Death were evil. They didn't have the abilities of Tang Zheng and the rest, so they naturally didn't dare to face them head-on. Therefore, the captain made a prompt decision and led the crew to abandon the ship and hide. Fortunately, the captain was wise enough. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for him to escape from Ji Wuxiang's evil hands. When Ji Wuxiang reached the shore, he sent people to search the ship. When he didn't see anyone, he immediately destroyed the ship. The crew members watched from afar. They were powerless and didn't dare to rush out to resist. They were all ordinary people. How could they be a match for this group of martial artists? Hearing this series of events, the crowd was excited. Yan Luyun patted the captain's shoulder and said, "You did well. Don't go head-to-head with that group of people. The key is to protect yourself. But our ship is destroyed. There's no way to go back." The captain blamed himself in shame. Yan Luyun sighed. He also knew the current predicament. Without a ship, it was a big problem for so many people to return. He had no choice but to look at Tang Zheng and the rest. Tang Zheng read his eyes and comforted him, everyone, don't worry. Although this is an isolated island and there are no ships, it won't be a problem for us. Hearing this, the crew members were greatly encouraged. Their eyes bloomed with the light of hope. Empyrean Fairy also didn't put this so-called problem in her eyes. She turned her head and looked in the direction of the gate of heaven. But there was nothing there. However, there was still a problem. Without a ship, it wouldn't be easy for these dozens of people to leave safely. Yi Dingdang asked in a low voice, what should we do? I'll go find a ship. I'll leave this sea area. I'll find a ship. Tang Zheng volunteered. There was no other way. This was the only way. Then you have to be careful. Ji Wuxiang and those people are too cunning. Don't ambush us outside and wait for us to walk into their trap. Fang Shishir was very careful and warned. Tang Zheng smiled and didn't take it to heart. He was about to wade into the water and leave when he heard a crew member cry out in alarm. It's high tide. Pairs of eyes uniformly looked toward the shore. Sure enough, the sea level was rising, and it was rising at a speed visible to the naked eye. Soon, it would reach their feet. What's going on? Ah, is this island going to be submerged? They couldn't help but recall the previous scene. This island had rushed out from the bottom of the sea. It was definitely time for the island to sink again. If that was the case, where would they have time to find a ship? By the time they found it, they would have already become ghosts under the water. Hurry up and think of a way. The island is about to sink. The crew members cried out in alarm, urging Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng frowned. He was certain that the island would definitely sink, and it would happen very quickly. If he didn't think of a way, these people would really suffer. Empyrean Fairy turned her head and looked at him, saying, your Sumeru world can accommodate them. What's there to be afraid of? Tang Zheng obviously knew this, but there were many secrets hidden in Sumeru world. One of them was the Shura. Forget it. In order to save people, this is the only way. Moreover, I've already divided Sumeru world into several regions that don't interfere with each other. Taking them in won't be too dangerous. Seeing the water rise faster and faster, Tang Zheng knew that he couldn't delay any longer. He hurriedly said, don't worry, I'll take you out of here safely. With that, he waved his hand and a light flashed from his wrist. Sumeru world displayed its might and absorbed the crew into Sumeru world in the blink of an eye. The others weren't surprised. On the contrary, they looked at his wrist expectantly. They also wanted to enter Sumeru world to investigate. Just in case, you guys go in as well. Tang Zheng said. I don't need it. Empyrean Fairy and Yan Qingyi said in unison. Tang Zheng didn't force them. The others all agreed. Although Yi Dingdang was restless and wanted to stay outside, she was still rejected by Tang Zheng. With a flash of light, the others disappeared. Only Tang Zheng, Empyrean Fairy and Yan Qingyi were left on the island. Empyrean Fairy looked thoughtfully at Yan Qingyi. She really couldn't guess how she would get through this crisis. What are you going to do? Tang Zheng directly asked. Yan Qingyi didn't answer. She strolled into the sea. The sea water submerged the soles of her shoes, but it didn't continue to rise. She actually stopped steadily on the surface of the sea, like a leaf, floating lightly. Tang Zheng and Empyrean Fairy looked at each other, full of suspicion. Yan Qingyi didn't have inner strength or qi. How did she do this? How did she counteract her own gravity? How did you do it? Tang Zheng asked in surprise. Yan Qingyi said calmly, the sea has its own Tao. If I follow the Tao, I will naturally be able to do this. Tang Zheng and Empyrean Fairy frowned at the same time. These words were too mysterious. It was like the words of a charlatan. I think your gains from inheriting the ancestors' Tao are much lower than hers. Empyrean Fairy ridiculed. Tang Zheng smiled bitterly and helplessly. Let's go quickly. The sea will soon submerge the island. Yan Qingyi urged. Tang Zheng and Empyrean Fairy also walked into the sea. Like Yan Qingyi, the sea water couldn't submerge the soles of their shoes. Rumble. A loud sound came from the island. They looked over at the same time and saw the island sink quickly. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared without a trace. Empyrean Fairy never thought that the Heaven's Gate would undergo such a huge change. She asked worriedly, when will the Heaven's Gate resurface? When the time is right, it will naturally reappear in the world. Yan Qingyi was tactful again. Empyrean Fairy rolled her eyes helplessly. She couldn't be bothered to say anything. In any case, it was a waste of saliva. Tang Zheng shook his head and smiled bitterly as he looked at the two of them. The person who obtained the greatest gains on this trip was probably Yan Qingyi. No wonder she insisted on going together. Yan Qingyi had cooperated with Tang Zheng many times. She was also a member of the Yan family, so she was a friend and not a foe. Tang Zheng wasn't jealous. Instead, he was sincerely happy for her. The three of them waded through the water as if they were walking on flat ground. There were no more ships on the sea, not even those mysterious ships. They safely left the Sea of Death. The sun in the distance was very dazzling. Although it was only a step away from the sea, it gave off a completely different feeling. It was like another world, incomparably warm, completely different from the gloomy coldness of the Sea of Death. The Sea of Death is so mysterious. How will we find it in the future? Tang Zheng asked worriedly. The Sea of Death was erratic. Although many ships tried their best to avoid it, sometimes they would accidentally intrude. For those who wanted to lock onto the Sea of Death, this characteristic was especially fatal. If they came again in the future, they might not be able to find it. Yan Qingyi wasn't worried at all. She said confidently, although the Sea of Death is erratic, the core area of the Heaven's Gate is still there. It's just that other people don't know about it, so there's no need to worry. Tang Zheng suddenly understood. Empyrean Fairy glared at Yan Qingyi with mixed feelings and said, even without her, I can bring you to find the Heaven's Gate again. Obviously, the two of them were fighting openly and covertly. In Sumeru World, the sky was overcast and the surroundings were quiet. Many people were curiously sizing up their surroundings. In particular, the crew looked as if they were looking at a zoetrope. However, they remembered Tang Zheng's instructions and didn't dare to move around carelessly. In view of Tang Zheng's abilities, they were all in awe and didn't dare to act rashly. Suddenly. Chapter 1247. The pair of eyes stared fixedly at the group of people, but they were completely oblivious. They were still immersed in the shock of Sumeru World. Whoosh! A strong gust of wind blew as a person rushed into the crowd. Like a wolf in a flock of sheep, everyone was thrown off their feet. Before they could react, they heard a cry of alarm and stopped abruptly. Who is it? The others cried out. They looked around and saw that one of their companions had fallen into the enemy's hands. Fang Shishir gritted her teeth, her eyes red. Although she couldn't see who it was, she was already under control. Just as the enemy was about to reach her, she sensed something strange. But before she could react, the enemy had already restrained her. The speed was as fast as lightning. The others looked at this scene and felt helpless. Yi Dingdang had a fiery temper. Seeing Fang Shishir being captured, she flew into a rage. Who are you? Let go of Shishir. The enemy hid behind Fang Shishir and didn't show his face. At the same time, Yi Dingdang and Fang Shishir muttered in their hearts. This was Sumeru World, a place under Tang Zheng's control. It should be an absolutely safe place. Why would an enemy suddenly appear? Hey, how could I let her go? She is Tang Zheng's most precious treasure and my most important bargaining chip. A voice rang out, as if a sinister plan had succeeded. This voice was so familiar. Fang Shishir and Yi Dingdang had the same thought. Suddenly, they looked at each other and shouted in unison, Xian Yin. This person was indeed Xian Yin. Her intelligence had been awakened by the Ksitagarbha Sutra and she had returned to normal. The two suddenly remembered that after Xian Yin became mentally retarded, she was taken into Sumeru world by Tang Zheng. Unexpectedly, she had unknowingly regained her intelligence and seized this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to capture Fang Shishir. Fang Shishir was Tang Zheng's reverse scale and also his Achilles heel. With Xuanin's intelligence, how could she not know this? Therefore, her hunting target was very clear. Of course, Yi Dingdang was also an important person to Tang Zheng, but Yi Dingdang was further away from her. To ensure that nothing went wrong, she chose to attack the person closest to her. Xian Yin, you actually dare to act rashly? Are you not afraid of death? Yi Dingdang asked hysterically. She was both anxious and angry in her heart. Xian Yin was a vicious and merciless person. If Fang Shishir were to meet with any mishap in her hands and she could only watch helplessly as it happened, she could not imagine what would happen. She would probably spend the rest of her life in pain and self-blame. In addition, Tang Zheng would be in even more pain. This was because he was the one who had indirectly caused all of this. Back then, he had deliberately left Xian Yin alive in hopes that one day, he would be able to learn more about the realm beyond heaven from her. However, man proposes, God disposes. Tang Zheng would never have dreamed that this would happen. Hearing Yi Dingdang's question, Xian Yin curled her lips and said disdainfully, "Of course I'm afraid of death." Tang Zheng was certain of this from the beginning. It's precisely because I'm afraid of death that I won't let go. She is the key to my escape. Sumeru Heavens was controlled by Tang Zheng and was an extremely powerful magic treasure. Without Tang Zheng's control, she would not be able to break out of its shackles. Originally, when she had regained her consciousness, she had been trying to figure out a way to escape. She did not expect that someone would send her a pillow just as she was about to sleep. Although she had been isolated by Tang Zheng in another area, she had caught the fluctuations of magic power when these people entered Sumeru Heavens. She quietly chased after them and found this group of people. She waited for an opportunity to make a move, and struck them in one strike. Fang Shishir could not see Xian Yin and could not turn her head. She could only ask with an ashen face, "Xian Yin, you can't escape. Don't waste time." "Ha, is that so? Why do you have so little confidence in yourself?" "I believe that Tang Zheng is willing to do anything for you, even sacrificing his own life. How could he watch you get hurt and not do anything? When the time comes, letting me go will be a trivial matter. I believe that he will make the right decision." Xian Yin was all smiles as she analyzed the situation logically. Obviously, she understood Fang Shishir's position in Tang Zheng's heart. She also understood Tang Zheng's character. He was definitely a person who valued friendship and righteousness. Fang Shishir and Yi Dingdang's hearts dimmed. They had to admit that Xian Yin was right. Seeing that they were speechless, Xian Yin laughed proudly, "Now you understand my confidence." The scene fell into silence. Everyone looked at this scene dumbfoundedly. They did not understand who this person who had suddenly appeared was. Xian Yin did not want to delay any longer, so she decisively shouted, "Tang Zheng, don't be a coward. Come out, or your beloved woman will say goodbye to you forever." Tang Zheng and the other two were originally strolling leisurely on the surface of the sea when suddenly, Tang Zheng's heart trembled and he subconsciously stopped in his tracks. His expression suddenly changed as his attention was completely focused on Sumi Tianxia. He sensed the movement in Sumi Tianxia and heard Xian Yin's words. His heart sank, as if he had been dragged into a bottomless abyss by a boulder. Empyrean Fairy and Yan Qingyi immediately noticed his abnormality. Seeing his pale face, they realized that something was wrong. "What's wrong?" Tang Zheng did not have time to answer. His mind was completely occupied by Sumi Tianxia. When he saw Xian Yin holding Fang Shishir hostage, his body shook violently and he almost fell to the ground. "Xian Yin, how did you recover your intelligence?" Hearing Tang Zheng's question, Xian Yin smiled coldly. "Are you surprised?" "Actually, I'm very surprised too." "How did you do it?" "It seems that your recitation of the Ksitigarbha Sutra awakened my intelligence. So, it's all thanks to you." Xian Yin said proudly. Tang Zheng's expression changed. He did not refute because he knew that this was the only explanation. The Ksitigarbha Sutra was not only useful to Azura, but also to Xian Yin. He even forgot that there was such a big scourge hidden in Sumi Tianxia. Tang Zheng, let's not talk about these useless things. Hurry up and let me out. Then I'll let your woman go. If not, at worst we'll fight to the death. If I don't live, she won't live either. Xian Yin's goal was clear and her methods were ruthless. Tang Zheng believed that if he stubbornly insisted on attacking, Xian Yin would not hesitate to kill him. He didn't care about Xian Yin's life, but he couldn't help but care about Fang Shishi's life. Let her go and I will also let you go. Tang Zheng gnashed his teeth, his anger had reached its peak, as if the flames of anger were about to burst out from his head. Xian Yin naturally felt his anger. The angrier he was, the more important Fang Shishi was, and the greater her chances of regaining her freedom. Although she knew that Tang Zheng was a man who kept his promises, she did not accept his offer. Because she did not want to take the risk. She had already touched Tang Zheng's reverse scale. Tang Zheng's actions could not be judged by common sense. She had to ensure that nothing went wrong. She would not have a second chance. She believed that once she failed, Tang Zheng would no longer think of obtaining any more information about the sky beyond heaven from her mouth, and would instead kill her cleanly. No, I have to make sure that I'm safe before I release your little lover. Xian Yin shook her head. Tang Zheng's voice trembled. It was easy to imagine the mix of worry and anger in his heart. You're playing with fire. You're courting death. Tang Zheng said fiercely. I've always been playing with fire, but the fire always burns others. I'm safe and sound. Xian Yin said proudly. Then you're asking for trouble this time. Xian Yin was unmoved. I know that Sumi world is your territory. If I delay for even a minute, then I'll be in more danger. There's no point in talking to you. Let me out quickly. I'll count to 3. If you don't let me go, then I'll just wait for her to die with me. Tang Zheng, don't listen to her. Don't let her go. Letting a tiger go back to the mountains is too big a threat. I don't care. A life for a life. To be able to exchange the life of an expert like her is worth it. Fang Shishi shouted righteously, like a martyr. Don't. Tang Zheng shouted to stop her. Your life is 1,000 times more important than hers. She's not worth that much. Shishi, don't worry. I'll definitely save you. So moving. You make me cry. But I don't want to wait any longer. Xian Yin's expression was a bit ugly. Her position in the Azure Dragon Hall was quite high. She had been able to call the wind and summon the rain for generations. She was a high and mighty existence. But Tang Zheng said that Fang Shishi's life was 1,000 times more important than hers. To her, this was absolutely heinous ridicule and provocation. Her face was ashen as she said, 1, 2. Don't. Tang Zheng turned pale with fright. With a thought, Xian Yin and Fang Shishi left Sumi world and appeared on the surface of the sea. The sky was high and the sea was wide. The clouds were light and the wind was light. Xian Yin breathed in the salty sea breeze, feeling refreshed. Her eyes were shining as she greedily looked at everything. Only now did she understand the pain of losing her freedom. She secretly warned herself that she would never suffer the same pain again. Empyrean Fairy and Yan Qingyi had been quietly looking at Tang Zheng. Although he didn't say a word, they had already realized that something was wrong. But since they didn't know the details, they couldn't help. They could only wait and see. When they saw Sumi worlds suddenly flash and 2 people appear on the surface of the sea and look at them from a distance, they immediately realized the crux of the problem. There was danger in Sumi world, and even Fang Shishi was kidnapped. No wonder Tang Zheng's reaction was so strange. After seeing Xian Yin's appearance, Empyrean Fairy blurted out, Xian Yin, why are you here? Empyrean Fairy didn't take Xian Yin seriously at all, thinking that it was already a thing of the past. Chapter 1248. Xian Yin looked at the Empyrean Fairy from afar. Empyrean Fairy, you've teamed up with Tang Zheng to deal with me and imprisoned me for so long. Now I'm finally going to regain my freedom. The Empyrean Fairy snorted. Stop dreaming. Do you think I'll release a tiger back into the mountains and let you do as you wish? Xian Yin glanced at Tang Zheng. So what if you don't agree? He'll agree. The Nine Heavens mystical maiden turned her head to look at Tang Zheng and saw that his eyes were red as if he wanted to eat someone. Her heart trembled as she said, he might care about Fang Shishir, but I might not. She said this to confuse Xian Yin. Xian Yin didn't fall for it. Then see if Tang Zheng will agree. I'm sure he'll become my best bodyguard if you make a move. The Empyrean Fairy sighed inwardly. She had to admit that Xian Yin had grasped Tang Zheng's weakness. Otherwise, she would become Tang Zheng's enemy. For a woman, Tang Zheng would be willing to make an enemy out of anyone. He was the type who preferred beauty over power. The Empyrean Fairy knew this and felt a deep sense of helplessness. Tang Zheng's face was gloomy. I've already released you from Sumeru world. You should let Shishir go now. Of course I'll let her go, but not now. You two experts are attacking me. If I let her go, I'll lose my bargaining chip. How can I guarantee that I won't be imprisoned again? Xian Yin spoke without stopping. She was well aware of her situation. Tang Zheng flew into a rage. You're going back on your word. When did I go back on my word? I only said I'll let her go, I didn't say when. Xian Yin shrugged. She wasn't afraid of Tang Zheng's anger at all. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth. He was filled with anger but had nowhere to vent it. Then what do you want me to do to release Shishir? I will take her away. Once I ensure my own safety, I will naturally let her go. No. Tang Zheng, without hesitation, rejected the idea. Xian Yin was a vicious and merciless person and didn't have much credibility. If she really captured Fang Shishir, it was uncertain whether she would let her go. Moreover, he couldn't control what harm Fang Shishir would suffer. Therefore, he would never allow Fang Shishir to leave his sight. I'm not negotiating with you, Xian Yin retorted. You don't have a choice. Xuanin's toughness was unexpected. Tang Zheng was in a dilemma. If he attacked, Fang Shishir might be injured. If he let the enemy leave, Fang Shishir might have a chance to survive, but he couldn't guarantee it. Tang Zheng wasn't a stupid person. He immediately made a decision. Xian Yin was smug. She thought that she had grasped Tang Zheng's Achilles heel. This time, she was bound to succeed. Tang Zheng glanced at Fang Shishir. Their eyes met and an invisible message was transmitted to each other. The Empyrean Fairy and Tang Zheng already had a tacit understanding. A simple glance was enough to convey enough information. Do it. Tang Zheng roared and launched a thunderous attack. The Empyrean Fairy attacked at the same time. The two rose and rushed towards Xian Yin like a gust of wind. Xian Yin's eyes widened. She looked at the scene in disbelief. She thought that victory was in her hands. She didn't expect that Tang Zheng would act rashly without caring about Fang Shishir's safety. Xian Yin thought that she knew Tang Zheng well, but in fact, she didn't. She only knew a little. Fang Shishir was indeed Tang Zheng's Achilles heel. It was precisely because of this that Tang Zheng couldn't watch her be taken away. If she was taken away, he would lose control completely. He couldn't accept losing control. Therefore, he would rather take action and fight for that glimmer of hope with a thunderous attack than give the initiative to Xian Yin. Empyrean Fairy also knew this. So when she saw Tang Zheng's eyes, she knew what he was thinking. The two suddenly attacked. Xian Yin didn't expect this and hurriedly retreated. Fang Shishir staggered backward. Bang! A cold light flew out and accurately hit Xian Yin's shoulder. Blood splattered and her shoulder immediately collapsed. Xian Yin let out a muffled groan as her face turned deathly pale. However, she still endured the pain and did not let go. She knew that once she let go, her life would come to an end. Her eyes turned cold and murderous. She stared at Tang Zheng who had rushed in front of her. Tang Zheng's eyes turned red. He was extremely angry. Whoosh! A cold light appeared again and attacked her head. Xian Yin didn't have time to think. She moved her wrist and Fang Shishir met the cold light head-on. In this life and death situation, she directly used Fang Shishir as a human shield. Fang Shishir was helpless. She could only watch as the attack reached her. Tang Zheng felt a chill and suddenly withdrew his attack. At this time, a cold light pierced through Fang Shishir's ribs and shot towards Tang Zheng's chest. Bang! The sacred armor shield flashed and blocked the attack. But Tang Zheng couldn't help but quickly retreat and put some distance between him and Xian Yin. This attack injured Xian Yin and forced Tang Zheng to retreat. He still couldn't take back Fang Shishir from Xian Yin. It was a failure. Empyrean Fairy's attack was like a shadow, attacking Xian Yin's side from the other side. Xian Yin was struggling. She had just forced Tang Zheng to retreat and now she had to deal with Empyrean Fairy. Empyrean Fairy's attack was more powerful than Tang Zheng's. Xian Yin tried to use Fang Shishir as a human shield again. But the light seemed to have eyes. It changed directions and avoided Fang Shishir, hitting Xian Yin's leg. Puff! Blood splattered. Xian Yin's left leg was covered in blood. The blood flowed into the sea and turned it red. Xian Yin's forehead was covered in sweat. Her heart was filled with sorrow. Wasn't she confident in her victory? How did it become like this? This guy didn't play by the rules at all, disrupting all of her plans. Empyrean Fairy couldn't help but feel sad when she saw that she couldn't kill Xian Yin in one hit. If she couldn't succeed in one hit, it would be a failure. Xian Yin couldn't care less about the pain. She hurriedly retreated. Her body was dyed red with blood. She also knew that if she could resist the opponent's sudden attack, she would win. She had indeed won. Tang Zheng tried to launch a second round of attacks, but Xian Yin was already holding a gleaming sword. She placed it on Fang Shishir's neck. Even a god wouldn't be able to save her if she made a light cut. Don't move! Xian Yin roared fiercely. Tang Zheng, you've really exceeded my expectations. You actually dared to attack without caring about her safety. I'll let you know the price of your actions. As soon as she finished speaking, a line of blood appeared on Fang Shishir's fair neck. A trace of blood flowed down her porcelain-like neck. Stop! Tang Zheng turned pale with fright. He stretched out his hand and shouted. Xian Yin stopped. She was only trying to intimidate Tang Zheng. She wouldn't really kill Fang Shishir. Fang Shishir was injured, but she didn't bat an eyelid. Instead, she shouted, Xian Yin, kill me if you can. Xian Yin laughed sinisterly. Humph, I won't kill you. You're my bargaining chip. She paused for a moment, then said to Tang Zheng, now you know my determination. If you dare to pressure her again, she'll definitely die. Fine, I won't make a move. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth and fiercely stared at the ninth heaven mystical maiden as he helplessly said. Sure, don't worry. I'll definitely save you. Even if I have to chase her to the ends of the earth, I'll save you. If she really dares to kill you, I'll make her beg for death. Tang Zheng threatened. I don't doubt your determination. Xian Yin said. I just want to escape. I don't want to kill anyone. Don't force me and we'll be fine. I'm leaving now. Don't chase after me. Otherwise, you'll be deliberately forcing her to her death. Faced with this overbearing condition, Tang Zheng had no choice but to accept. Empyrean Fairy sighed inwardly. There was nothing she could do. Xian Yin seemed to have seen the hope of victory. She retreated step by step. Because she was injured, her feet were submerged in the sea. From this, it was clear that she had used up a lot of energy. If she lost the hostage, she wouldn't be a match for Tang Zheng and the others. Yan Qingyi watched all this quietly like a bystander. She didn't move at all. Even her eyes didn't move. Xian Yin was afraid that Tang Zheng would make things difficult for her again, so she didn't dare to turn around and leave. Instead, she retreated step by step, hoping to put as much distance between them as possible before turning around to escape. She retreated in the direction of Yan Qingyi. Yan Qingyi stood quietly on the surface of the sea. It was as if she had become one with the sea, not making a sound. Xian Yin sensed that there was someone behind her. She had also seen Yan Qingyi earlier. Although she was floating on the surface of the sea, she subconsciously thought that it was Tang Zheng's magic. Most importantly, Yan Qingyi did not have any inner strength or true qi fluctuations. She was no different from a normal person. Therefore, Xian Yin treated her as a normal person and did not take her seriously. In her eyes, Yan Qingyi was just like an ordinary person who had been scared silly by the scene just now. Xian Yin finally retreated to Xian Yin's side. The two of them were a meter apart. To an ordinary person, this distance wouldn't be a threat to Xian Yin. Even a strong cultivator with a certain level of strength wouldn't be able to threaten her. Xian Yin knew that if she retreated a little more, she would be safe. She would then take Fang Shishir and fly far away. Just as she was about to miss Yan Qingyi, she inadvertently glanced out of the corner of her eye and suddenly realized that Yan Qingyi had disappeared. Before she had time to figure out what was going on, she sensed that there was an extra person behind her. She was shocked and cried out in alarm. Her whole body was on full alert, but she was still a step too late. A soft palm hit her elbow joint. It was an extremely clever move. Her wrist tilted and the long sword moved away from Fang Shishir's neck. Fang Shishir wasn't an ordinary person either. She accurately grasped this crucial flaw and with a slip of her feet, she rushed forward and completely escaped from Xian Yin's control. Xian Yin was shocked and angry. She turned her head slightly and saw Yan Qingyi's calm eyes. Yan Qingyi looked at her indifferently as if she was looking at an extremely ordinary person. It was as if in her eyes, Xian Yin wasn't a huge threat at all. Xian Yin had lost her hostage and it was impossible to get her back. Only this person in front of her could become the new hostage. Chapter 1249. Xian Yin tried to grab Yan Qingyi, but it was too late for the others to save her. Tang Zheng and the Empyrean Fairy were not in a hurry to save her. They were sure that Yan Qingyi would be able to dodge her attack. As expected, Yan Qingyi dodged Xian Yin's attack by a hair's breadth, causing Xian Yin to miss. Xian Yin staggered and almost fell down. She was battered and exhausted. She stared at Yan Qingyi in shock and anger and asked, "How did you do it?" As soon as she finished asking, she rushed out again. This time, she was determined to catch Yan Qingyi. Her desperate struggle did not yield any results. In addition, no one else came to stop her. This made her very puzzled. Shouldn't Tang Zheng and the Empyrean Fairy stop her? Otherwise, if Yan Qingyi fell into her hands, wouldn't his hands and feet be tied? Before she could figure out this problem, she found that her big hand had grabbed empty air again. Yan Qingyi was standing to the side, looking at her calmly. Her eyes were full of ridicule, as if she was looking at a fool. Xian Yin's heart thumped as an ominous premonition arose. The other party could escape from her hands twice, and it was definitely not by luck. That meant that she was not as simple as she looked. What should she do? Xian Yin was burning with anxiety. Her two attacks had failed, so it was impossible for her to catch Yan Qingyi again. Sure enough, reality confirmed her guess. The Empyrean Fairy rushed over with a whoosh. Tang Zheng joined Fang Shishir and hugged her waist tightly. He said with lingering fear, "It's good that you're okay, it's good that you're okay." Looking at the thin line of blood on her neck, he grimaced in pain. Seeing him like this, Fang Shishir laughed involuntarily. "Don't worry about me, it's just a flesh wound. I'm fine." Although he knew that this sentence was true, Tang Zheng still blamed himself and said, I didn't protect you well. It's my fault. Fang Shishir shook her head and said, it's not your fault. No one would have expected this. When Tang Zheng heard this, he felt as if a huge rock was pressing down on his heart. He shielded Fang Shishir behind him and glared fiercely at Xian Yin. The Empyrean fairy had already arrived in front of Xian Yin. Xian Yin had no choice but to face the enemy in a panic. Bang bang bang. On the surface of the sea, the two figures moved erratically as they fought fiercely. Xian Yin had just recovered, and she had suffered 2 heavy blows in a row. Her strength had already been greatly depleted, so how could she be a match for the Empyrean fairy? The painting of mountains and rivers of the gods of Vale expanded in the wind and completely enveloped Xuanin's head. Wind, rain, thunder, and lightning came unexpectedly. Xian Yin shrieked as a yellow light flashed in her hand and a small bell flew into the air. There was a crack in the middle of the bell, a mark left behind from her battle with Tang Zheng. The bell was originally a sacred weapon, but its power had been greatly reduced because of this. Xian Yin didn't have time to repair the bell, so she had to use it again in this life and death situation. Ding ling ling. The bell suddenly rang out, and the demonic sound spread rapidly in all directions like water waves. In an instant, everyone present was affected. Tang Zheng had fought with Xian Yin several times and had figured out her tactics. He hurriedly warned, be careful, this demonic sound is a spiritual attack that can attack one's mind and bewitch one's heart. This warning was like a wake-up call. Everyone's spirits were lifted, and they quickly gathered their thoughts and focused 120% of their attention. However, the demonic sound was still pervasive and quickly drilled into everyone's ears. They were all startled and their movements became much slower. Xian Yin didn't follow up with another attack. Instead, she took advantage of her opponent's carelessness and turned to flee. Stop! Empyrean Fairy's eyes were like torches as she firmly locked onto Xian Yin's back. With a point of her finger, the mountain river map quickly chased after her. Wind, rain, thunder, and lightning came unexpectedly and attacked Xian Yin's back fiercely. Ding ling ling. The demonic sound became more and more intense. A yellow light rose from the bell and transformed into the shape of a bell, covering Xian Yin's body. The wind, rain, thunder, and lightning attacks fell on the light shield. Crack! The light barrier collapsed and shattered into pieces. However, Xian Yin, who was inside it, was safe and sound. She took this opportunity to flee a long distance. Fortunately, they were on the surface of the sea and could see the horizon at a glance. Xian Yin had nowhere to hide. If they were in the mountains, she would have escaped in such a situation. Everyone knew this. However, they also knew that if they let Xian Yin escape for a while longer, she could sink to the bottom of the sea and find a chance to slip away. Practitioners were not fish. Although they could survive temporarily at the bottom of the sea, they couldn't survive forever. After all, they had to breathe. Unless there was no other choice, Xian Yin would not rashly sink to the bottom of the sea. Demonic Sound's attack was very powerful. Even Yan Qingyi frowned, apparently silently resisting Demonic Sound. The strength she had previously displayed was frightening, but Demonic Sound was still effective against her. Tang Zheng also noticed this and instantly understood that the strength of mental attacks was beyond imagination. Xian Yin could dodge physical attacks, but she couldn't avoid mental attacks. Seeing that Xian Yin was about to escape, Tang Zheng couldn't sit idly by and said, Sure, be careful. I'll deal with her. After saying that, he rushed out. He wasn't afraid of Demonic Sound's attack because his mental strength was very strong. In addition, he also had the unique skill, mind manipulation, taught by the inner demons. Mind manipulation was a very powerful mental attack. It was many times stronger than Demonic Sound's attack. Using mental attacks in front of the inner demons was like displaying one slight skill in front of an expert. She was asking for humiliation. Seeing Tang Zheng rushing over, Xian Yin knew that things weren't going well. She had experienced Tang Zheng's mind manipulation before. It was her fatal nemesis. Therefore, she didn't even look back. She used all her strength and ran as fast as she could. However, Tang Zheng's speed wasn't slow either. He was getting closer and closer to her. Her eyes were filled with despair, but she didn't give up. Splash! With a splash, she rushed into the sea and swam towards the depths of the sea. Her speed was faster than a fish's. Competing with me in diving is asking for humiliation. Tang Zheng snorted. With a splash, he also dived into the sea. As soon as he entered the water, he activated the Dragon God technique. A golden light overflowed from his body and enveloped him. Draconic chi and draconic might erupted. In an instant, he seemed to have turned into a swimming dragon. He was like a fish in water. He wasn't afraid of the sea at all. Instead, the sea helped him move forward. After Tang Zheng cultivated the Dragon God's secret art, his body had undergone a subtle change, especially in the sea. This point was completely displayed. He could breathe freely and wasn't afraid of the pressure of the sea or the feeling of suffocation. Seeing Xian Yin diving into the depths of the sea from afar, Tang Zheng shouted, "Xian Yin, stop right there." His voice spread through the sea, causing ripples to appear on the surface of the sea. Xian Yin subconsciously turned her head when she heard the voice. Her eyes were wide open as she watched Tang Zheng chase after her at lightning speed. How can he be so fast? Crap, at this rate, he'll definitely catch up to me. She thought that by diving into the sea, she could use the underwater world as a cover to avoid Tang Zheng's pursuit and escape unscathed. But she had completely underestimated Tang Zheng's strength. He was even more powerful underwater than he was on the surface. His speed was also ridiculously fast. Her speed was restricted by the sea and was much weaker. How could she dare to compare with Tang Zheng? What should I do? Demonic sound has no effect on him. I just escaped with great difficulty. Am I going to fall into his hands again? Xian Yin was in despair. The bell in her hand shook more and more violently, trying to attack Tang Zheng with this last thing she could rely on. Demonic sound entered Tang Zheng's ears, but it was like scratching an itch to him. He shouted, "Xian Yin, is this all you can do? Show me all your tricks. Before you die, let me see your true level." His voice entered Xian Yin's ears. She was so angry that smoke was coming out of her 7 orifices. But there was nothing she could do. Her heart was trembling. If she wasn't injured, she naturally wouldn't put Tang Zheng in her eyes. Now that she was injured, and Tang Zheng had a way to restrain her magic, the situation naturally became extremely dangerous. How could she dare to fight Tang Zheng head-on? Seeing that Xian Yin didn't stop at all, it was obvious that she didn't want to fight with him. Her goal couldn't be any more obvious. How could I let you do as you wish? This underwater world is my world. If you walk right into my trap, you'll be courting death. Tang Zheng roared, and had already caught up to Xian Yin. Whiz! The bowstring of the heaven-shocking bow trembled, and the sun-shooting arrow left the bowstring, drawing a snow-white wave in the sea, fiercely shooting towards Xian Yin. Xian Yin didn't even turn her head, but she could feel what was behind her. Her eyes revealed a sorrowful expression as she suddenly turned and rushed towards the surface of the sea. The bottom of the sea was Tang Zheng's world. If she continued to stay, she would have no chance of winning. Furthermore, the air underwater was getting thinner and thinner, so she couldn't continue to hold on. She rushed towards the surface of the sea with all her might. Like a rocket, the seawater was slapped to both sides. However, how could her speed compare to the sun-shooting arrow? The sun-shooting arrow was like a ray of light, reaching her back in the blink of an eye. Ding-ling-ling. The bell rang again, and the yellow light soared into the sky, enveloping her. Ka-cha! The sun-shooting arrow directly pierced through the light, and went straight in. At the critical moment of life and death, Xian Yin activated the bell, which quickly grew larger, and directly blocked behind her. Ding! The sun-shooting arrow struck the bell, causing it to tremble violently. The light aura exploded, but it quickly dissipated. Not long later, it disappeared into nothingness. Ka-cha! The bell also completely cracked, turning into pieces. A sacred artifact had completed its mission. Puff! Seeing that, Xian Yin spat out a mouthful of blood, and screamed at the top of her lungs, "No!" However, it was already too late. The bell had completely turned into scrap, and was completely useless. Xian Yin and the bell were connected. When the bell was destroyed, her mind was violently shaken, and her movements immediately slowed down. However, the speed of the sun's shooting arrow did not decrease by much. With a puff, it pierced through his back and came out from his chest. Crash! The powerful force of the sun's shooting arrow brought Xian Yin out of the sea and into the air. Blood and seawater sprinkled down from the sky. Chapter 1250. Xian Yin rushed into the air and a golden light rushed up from the bottom of the sea. Roar! A dragon's roar resounded through the sky as the golden dragon waved its 6 golden claws. It opened its mouth wide and broke out of the water, bringing with it a sky full of water droplets that reflected the golden light. The dragon firmly locked its eyes on Xian Yin, who was in the air. It swayed its tail and flew in front of Xian Yin. It roared, "Xian Yin, you trapped me for hundreds of years. Now, I can finally take revenge." Last time, Tang Zheng stopped the golden dragon and the red moon from taking revenge because he had some expectations. The golden dragon understood this very well. This time, the situation was very different. The golden dragon knew very well, so when it saw the shooting sun arrow hit Xian Yin, it could not wait to rush out. Whoosh! A strong wind blew and Xian Yin could not resist at all. She could only watch as the dragon's huge mouth fell from the sky and viciously bit her. She struggled and tried to escape from the dragon's mouth. How could that be possible? The golden dragon hated her to the bone. It wanted to bite her into pieces and swallow her. Xian Yin was hit by the shooting sun arrow and her internal organs were greatly damaged. Now that she was bitten by the dragon, even an immortal would not be able to escape. On the sea, when the others saw this scene, their eyes lit up and they were very satisfied. Xian Yin had been scheming, and now she finally knew what it was like to play with fire. Splash! Tang Zheng broke out of the water and floated in the air, staring at Xian Yin. He could understand the 5-clawed golden dragon's anger, so he did not stop it. He stepped in front of Xian Yin. Xian Yin stared at him with a pair of bloodshot eyes. "Xian Yin, you have failed." Tang Zheng gnashed his teeth and said with a murderous aura. Xian Yin was very clear about her situation. She had no one to rely on and had touched Tang Zheng's reverse scale. This was enough to explain her fate. But she was a person who was afraid of death and cherished her life very much. How could she bear to die like this? She had been scheming and playing with the world in the palm of her hand for so long. How could she be willing to accept this? She took her last breath and said with great difficulty, "Tang Zheng, if you kill me, then you will never know the secret of the Outland." Tang Zheng shook his head. "Compared to the secrets of the Outland, what you did just now has crossed my bottom line. You dared to touch my woman. From that moment on, you have already sentenced yourself to death." The corners of Xian Yin's mouth twitched fiercely as she said, "It's just a woman. There are so many women in the world. With your ability, you can get any woman you want. Why care about a mere woman? If you join forces with me, not only will you have a place in this world, but you will also have a place in the beyond heaven." Although Xian Yin was a woman, her mindset was that of the ancient times. She didn't even see herself as a woman. The ancients had 3 wives and 4 concubines. Very few people valued a woman so much. Therefore, she could not understand Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's eyes turned cold. "What a big pie. Unfortunately, compared to my woman, this pie you've painted for me is worthless. Why bother?" Throughout history, those who loved beauties over their country all had bad endings. Don't tell me you want to follow in their footsteps. Xian Yin tried to persuade him. You cold-blooded woman. You don't know the value of true love. You don't have the right to make thoughtless remarks. Tang Zheng vehemently complained. Xuanin's heart sank. Her silver tongue had bewitched many people in the past. Emperors, generals, ministers, ambitious and ruthless people, no one could resist her. Now that she had met her Waterloo, she couldn't bewitch Tang Zheng at all. Am I, Xuanin, really going to die here? No, I can't accept this. I can't die. Xuanin's heart screamed. Looking at Tang Zheng's eyes, she knew that he had made up his mind. If he really wanted to kill her, even if she lost her mind like last time, he wouldn't show mercy. Her heart was in turmoil. Her despair completely overwhelmed the pain in her body. Why are you talking so much nonsense with her? She's done all kinds of bad things. If you don't kill her, it won't be enough to vent your hatred. If you can't do it, I'll do it. The golden dragon's voice sounded. It bit Xuanin and its voice sounded a bit muffled. Tang Zheng didn't say a word. He reached out and grabbed the shooting sun arrow. Bit by bit, he pulled it back. Rip! The sound of the shooting sun arrow being pulled out of bone and flesh made people's hearts tremble. Blood gushed out of the wound. Ah! Xuanin's body arched and she let out a heart-wrenching scream. Tang Zheng didn't stop. Like a master sculptor, he was meticulous and didn't want to be careless. Xuanin's scream gradually turned from high-pitched to low. In the end, only the sound of heavy breathing was left. Puff! The shooting sun arrow was completely pulled out of Xuanin's body. Blood splattered everywhere. Xuanin seemed to have been choked by someone. Her breathing seemed to have stopped. Her eyes were wide open. After a few seconds, she recovered a bit of her spirit. The fear in her heart gradually spread. Her eyes widened and she looked at Tang Zheng with a pale face. There's no need for you to do it. Tang Zheng calmly replied to the golden dragon. The golden dragon saw this and was in high spirits. It originally thought that Tang Zheng hadn't made up his mind to kill her. Now it seemed that it had worried too much. Xuanin's kidnapping and harming of Fang Shishir was a completely wrong step. Tang Zheng, I beg you, don't kill me. Fang Shishir couldn't care less about the pain. She also realized his determination and hurriedly begged for mercy. It's too late. Tang Zheng didn't give her the slightest chance. Xuanin still didn't give up. She thought of something and gritted her teeth. Don't you want to know the situation in Sky Beyond Heaven? I'll tell you. As long as you don't kill me, let me live. This was her last resort. At this critical moment of life and death, she had no choice but to throw out this condition. Tang Zheng's hand paused for a moment. He looked at her with a complicated expression. Xuanin saw this and as if she had grasped at a life-saving straw, she eagerly said, I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you everything you want to know. Don't listen to her nonsense. Her words can't be trusted at all. The golden dragon also impatiently advised, afraid that Tang Zheng would agree to her request. No. Xuanin hurriedly shook her head. I'll tell you the truth. I won't hide anything. Otherwise, I'll die a horrible death. Tang Zheng curled his lips playfully. Do you think I'll believe your oath? Huh? Xuanin was stunned but still didn't give up. She continued, whether you believe it or not, my words are absolutely true. After a pause, Xuanin's heart seemed to be in a fierce struggle. After a moment, she continued, Sky Beyond Heaven is a mysterious world. Ever since His Majesty unified Sky Beyond Heaven has been deteriorating. It's no longer as prosperous as it used to be. Sky Beyond Heaven's foundation has been destroyed and is becoming more and more unstable. I and the others were chosen as volunteers to pass through the space gate. I'm the only one who came to this world. Stop. Tang Zheng raised his hand and stopped her. This is something we already know. It's meaningless. Seeing Tang Zheng's impatience, Xuanin knew that she had to come up with something useful. Otherwise, her life would be in danger. She no longer hid anything and said loudly, "Actually, us volunteers who passed through the space gate didn't do it of our own volition. We're all concubines of the great families." Tang Zheng was enlightened. He clicked his tongue and said, "So that's how it is. Your arrogance was all an act. You're not an important person in sky beyond heaven." Xuaning's face stiffened. This was her eternal pain. She couldn't care less about Tang Zheng's ridicule. She hung her head dejectedly and said, "Yes, I'm not an important person. I don't want to return to sky beyond heaven. I've already completed my mission. I expelled all the cultivators of this world to sky beyond heaven to provide energy for sky beyond heaven. I've done my duty." A ferocious look appeared on Xuaning's face. If she returned to sky beyond heaven, she would be an insignificant character. She wouldn't be able to stand at the top of this world and live a carefree life. Tang Zheng sneered. "So that's your plan. But what use is it to me? What I want is information about sky beyond heaven." I said, "The specific information about sky beyond heaven isn't important. There's one thing that's more important." "What is it?" Tang Zheng raised an eyebrow. "Last time you said that over 1,000 demons have returned from sky beyond heaven. Is that right?" Tang Zheng nodded. "What does this have to do with the demons?" "This means that the spatial separation between the two worlds is very weak. Otherwise, how could the demons have returned so easily?" Xianyin said worriedly. "What do you mean?" Tang Zheng suddenly realized that he might have overlooked a lot of things. The spatial separation between the two worlds should be very tight. It would take a lot of effort to open a spatial gate. But now, a great array can summon over 1,000 demons. This is enough to prove that the spatial separation between the two worlds is very weak. Tang Zheng seemed to be deep in thought, and raised an objection, saying, "The Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array is not an ordinary array, it is something that was exchanged with the lives of hundreds of millions of people." Xianyin said disdainfully, "So what? Besides, you should remember that time when the demons summoned the demon god outside the northwest boundary. Didn't they succeed in summoning the demon god after killing only a few people? Moreover, in the past few hundred years, do you think that the demons haven't used the Mountain River Blood Sacrificial Array to summon the demons? But have they succeeded? Let me tell you, they haven't succeeded even once." "What, there's such a thing?" Tang Zheng was shocked. This was something that she definitely didn't know. Perhaps the demons were too secretive in their actions in the past. Of course, the Azure Dragon Palace was an exception. Seeing Tang Zheng's shock, Xianyin felt that her chances of survival were much higher. Of course, the demons haven't succeeded in the past. But now that they've succeeded several times in a row, it's enough to explain many things. I'm the only one who knows the secret behind this. Of course, now that I've told you, you'll know as well." She paused for a moment to let Tang Zheng digest this information. "So, this world is not safe. The people of sky beyond heaven will follow in the footsteps of the demons and invade this world." Chapter 1251. Xianyin was lucky to see the dumbfounded look on everyone's faces. She thought that once this news came out, it would be enough to save her life. Tang Zheng and the Empyrean fairy looked at each other, then looked at Xianyin and came to a conclusion. Xianyin was not lying, it was true. The people from the sky beyond heaven would follow in the footsteps of the demons and invade this world. With the nature of the people from the sky beyond heaven, they would definitely do anything. When the time came, this world would be plunged into misery and suffering. As for how many people would survive, that was unknown. What should we do? Both of them had the same question in their eyes. They were not worried about the invasion of the sky beyond heaven and thought that it would be enough to deal with the 1,000 demons. Now it seemed that they had misjudged the current situation. The current situation was far more dangerous than they had expected. The two of them looked at each other in dismay and wanted to ask what to do. But they were helpless. Xianyin saw the clues from their expressions and volunteered, "I have a way to solve this crisis." Tang Zheng suddenly turned his head and stared at her, asking, "What way?" Xian Yin's lips curved into an unfathomable smile, but she did not answer. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat and he immediately understood her thoughts. She wanted to use this as leverage to fight for a chance to survive. "You want to use this to threaten me?" Tang Zheng saw through her thoughts. Xian Yin corrected him, "It's not a threat, it's a cooperation. I don't want the people from the sky beyond heaven to come to this world. If we cooperate, we can stop all of this." Tang Zheng suddenly had an idea as he looked at Xian Yin with a burning gaze, as if he was deep in thought. "You are worried that after those people come, you will become an insignificant person, so you have this idea, right?" Xian Yin did not deny it and was silent for a while. Tang Zheng saw this and continued, "As for the cooperation you mentioned, Humph, do you think you still have a chance to cooperate? You can't say that. If you cooperate with me, it will only benefit you. Besides, I'm the only one who knows how to stop the people from the sky beyond heaven." Xian Yin looked determined. Tang Zheng's face was cold as he said, "If you tell me the method, maybe we can still talk about it. Of course, I won't tell you the method, but I can remind you that the spatial isolation between the two worlds must be strengthened to prevent the invasion of the outer sky." Xian Yin looked as if she would rather be beaten to death than admit it. Instead, she deliberately revealed a few words in an attempt to whet Tang Zheng's appetite. Tang Zheng said thoughtfully, "We have to strengthen the spatial isolation between the two worlds." He didn't know the exact method, but Xian Yin was unwilling to tell him. This was her last resort, and with her temper, she definitely wouldn't give in so easily. After what had happened last time, Tang Zheng's hostility towards Xian Yin had increased. He was not prepared to compromise with her at all. Tang Zheng stared straight at her. His gaze was as sharp as a knife as he asked murderously, "I'm going to ask you one last time. Are you going to tell me or not? If you're willing to tell me, then perhaps I'll spare your life. If you insist on not telling me, then don't blame me for being ruthless." Xian Yin stared at him, lost in thought. Her heart was in a fierce struggle. She really couldn't decide whether to tell Tang Zheng the truth or not. If she told him, then she wouldn't have anything to rely on and would be at Tang Zheng's mercy. This was the situation she was most worried about. If she didn't tell him and kept dragging on Tang Zheng, then Tang Zheng would most likely not take her life for the time being out of consideration for the overall situation. Her eyes flickered and her heart was tossing and turning. Finally, she heavily exhaled a turbid breath, as if she had made up her mind, and said, "If you cooperate with me, I'll naturally tell you. Moreover, I'll give you a hand to defeat the devil race. Presumably, the devil race is an absolute threat to you now. With me, all of this won't be a problem. Hundreds of years ago, I could drive them away. Today, I can still defeat them." Xian Yin was full of confidence, as if she had returned to the high and mighty Xian Yin who was omnipotent. This was indeed a tempting plan. Tang Zheng's heart palpitated with eagerness, but his rationality poured a basin of cold water over his head. His heart instantly became cold and his eyes burst with killing intent. Xian Yin saw this scene and suppressed her palpitations, saying, "This is my bottom line. I absolutely won't compromise." "You have a bottom line, but do you think I don't?" Tang Zheng sneered and pointed at Fang Shishir in the distance, "She is my bottom line. You almost killed her, which is a violation of my bottom line. Moreover, you don't want to cooperate and even want to bargain with me. Do you think I'll let you live?" Tang Zheng's question gradually became more and more serious, forcing Xian Yin's expression to change again and again. Her breathing also became heavier and heavier, to the point where she even forgot about her wound. Blood continued to drip down, dyeing the seawater below red. Hearing Tang Zheng's interrogation, the golden dragon's eyes flashed with surprise. This was the rhythm of Tang Zheng wanting to kill her. Then, he could get his revenge. Xian Yin's face became very pale and she panted like a cow, saying, "Tang Zheng, don't mess around. You'll regret it. The invasion of the outer sky is not a trivial matter. It will bring disaster to the world. No one can stay out of it. Only if you and I cooperate can we stop all of this. She was still making a dying struggle, trying to save her life. She still had a trace of luck in her heart. Tang Zheng must be scaring her. She must not be scared by him. Just like last time, she must withstand the pressure to save her life. Tang Zheng turned his head and did not look at her. He had done his best, but Xian Yin still had unrealistic illusions. In this case, there was nothing to talk about. As for the invasion of the outer sky, this was indeed a thorny problem, but there was nothing to be afraid of. It might not be as terrible as Xian Yin said. Even if it was so terrible, so what? At worst, they could just fight. What was there to be afraid of? The most important thing was that the same problem could not be committed twice. This was something he could not tolerate. Golden Dragon, haven't you always wanted to take revenge? She imprisoned you for hundreds of years. Today, you can finally take revenge. Tang Zheng said indifferently without turning his head. The golden dragon's eyes immediately burst with light, and its whole body emitted bursts of light. It was particularly dazzling under the sunlight. Good. The golden dragon roared excitedly, and its huge dragon eyes locked on Xian Yin. It laughed and said, Xian Yin, this is the price you have to pay for imprisoning me for hundreds of years. Go to hell. As soon as it finished speaking, the golden dragon closed its mouth with all its strength, and its sharp teeth directly sank into Xian Yin's body. Crack. Xian Yin's bones broke, and blood splattered everywhere. Ah! Xian Yin opened her mouth wide, and only had time to let out half a scream before it came to an abrupt stop. Her eyes widened in disbelief. She never thought that Tang Zheng would ignore the invasion of the outer sky and kill her directly. She did not understand until she died. Crack. Crack. Chapter 1252. The others stared at the scene with their mouths agape. Who would have thought that the golden dragon would actually swallow Xian Yin? An expert had fallen just like that. No one pitied her. On the contrary, they were delighted. She had only herself to blame for all the bad things she had done to the world. The others didn't expect that Tang Zheng would use such a ruthless method to have the golden dragon kill Xian Yin, but they didn't stop him. Xian Yin is dead, but the problem she left behind is still unsolved. What should we do? The Empyrean fairy asked. Different situations call for different measures. What's there to be afraid of? Tang Zheng was full of confidence. The Empyrean fairy looked deeply at him. It may not be as easy as you say. The key is that we have to find a way to strengthen the spatial separation between the two worlds. Tang Zheng understood that her words were reasonable and didn't argue. Don't worry, there will be a way when the time comes. Young man, let me give you a suggestion. Didn't the demons return from the realm beyond heaven? They must have a better understanding of the matters between the two worlds. Perhaps there will be unexpected gains if you discuss with them. The inner demons suddenly pointed out a maze. Tang Zheng's head twitched. He had to admit that the inner demon's words were reasonable, but the demons were his sworn enemies. How could he cooperate with them? You're really stubborn. This is a critical moment of life and death, why are you still so worried? Are you more conservative than an ancient person like me? The inner demons reprimanded him. Tang Zheng felt ashamed as he replied, I understand. This matter is of great importance, so I cannot stubbornly stick to my own views and seal myself off. That's more like it. The inner demons smiled with gratification. Seeing that Tang Zheng was silent, the Empyrean fairy asked curiously, have you thought of a good idea? I do have one. It's worth a try. Then hurry up and say it. Fang Shishir and Yan Qingyi also stared at Tang Zheng at the same time, waiting to see what kind of trick he would use. Regarding Xian Yin's words, the two of them were also at their wits' end. Yan Qingyi was no longer what she used to be, but she still couldn't do anything about it. We're going to find the demons to discuss countermeasures, Tang Zheng said simply. As soon as he said this, the three of them were shocked and frowned. The Empyrean fairy was the first to understand. She said thoughtfully, you think that the demon race has returned from the realm beyond heaven, so they have a better understanding of the situation and might have a solution, right? After her reminder, the other two also came to a realization. They believed that this proposal was not nonsense and might actually be feasible. Seeing that the Empyrean fairy had figured it out, she nodded and said, yes, do you think it will work? The Empyrean fairy muttered, I think it's feasible. Good, then this is a tentative plan. We'll go back and discuss the details. Tang Zheng decided. Tang Zheng, Ding Dang, and the others must be very worried when they saw that I was captured. Hurry up and tell them, don't let them worry. Fang Shishir suddenly said. Yes. Tang Zheng hurriedly used his divine sense to enter Sumeru world and saw that everyone was as anxious as ants on a hot pan. However, they were trapped in Sumeru world and had no way to contact Tang Zheng. There was nothing he could do. Tang Zheng felt ashamed and comforted them with kind words. Only then did everyone gradually calm down. Shishir isn't hurt, is she? Yi Dingdang asked with concern. The two of them had gone through many trials and tribulations together. They were already as close as sisters. Shishir only suffered some superficial wounds. She's fine. What about Xianyin? Feng Xinyang asked again. She's dead. Good. Yi Dingdang abhorred evil and immediately applauded, she has done so many bad things and even kidnapped Shishir. This is what she deserves. Tang Zheng comforted them with kind words and then withdrew his divine sense from Sumeru world. The four of them stood on the sea. Fang Shishir's cultivation was the weakest, so she couldn't stand on the sea for long. In the end, she could only rely on Tang Zheng to support her. She had just been frightened and injured, so Tang Zheng couldn't bear to let her return to Sumeru world. He decided to take her with him and travel with him. The golden dragon soared above the sea, sparkling with golden light. It was very happy that it had gotten its revenge. It let out deafening dragon roars one after another. Fortunately, this was an uninhabited sea. Otherwise, the dragon roars would have scared the others. The golden dragon soared into the sky, but its roars came to an abrupt stop as if it was being strangled. Bang! Falling from the sky, the golden dragon fell directly into the sea, splashing up huge waves several feet high. The others had originally relaxed their minds, but when they saw this scene, their hearts tightened in fright, and they simultaneously straightened their bodies, turning pale with shock as they watched this scene. What's going on? Tang Zheng shouted. The golden dragon quickly sank into the sea, letting out a low whimper. Tang Zheng secretly cursed. For the golden dragon to have such a big situation, it must be an unusual situation. Plop! Without saying a word, he plunged into the sea like a missile. He saw the golden dragon's body stiffen and its golden light become very weak. Its situation was obviously not good. He quickly swam to the golden dragon's side and hugged its huge head. He roared with all his strength and soared into the sky, flying out of the water with the golden dragon. When the others saw this scene, they were shocked. They quickly rushed over and asked, what's going on? How did the golden dragon become like this? Tang Zheng was also at his wit's end. He shook his head and said, I don't know. Let me wake it up first. He focused on circulating the dragon god technique. His body immediately glowed with a golden light and pieces of golden dragon scales appeared. In an instant, he seemed to have turned into a dragon. Especially the majestic dragon Qi and dragon might, it made people tremble. They had the urge to crawl on the ground and kowtow. They couldn't help but sigh at Tang Zheng's strength. This was something that the Empyrean fairy couldn't do. Tang Zheng was completely immersed in the golden dragon's body. He found that a mysterious power was rushing around, colliding with its meridians and internal organs. This power was very powerful. It was like breaking through dry weeds. The golden dragon's own energy was unable to resist. Although the golden dragon's body was imprisoned, its divine sense did not disappear. It seemed to have sensed Tang Zheng's existence and hurriedly shouted, hurry up and save me. This is because I swallowed Xuanin's body just now. Tang Zheng was extremely surprised. He thought that the golden dragon had some kind of chronic illness, but he didn't expect that it was caused by Xuanin's body. Why was Xuanin's body so powerful? Moonlight essence, it's moonlight essence. The golden dragon shouted. It already knew the crux of the problem. Tang Zheng was shocked. What did this have to do with moonlight essence? However, when he carefully sensed the mysterious power, it was indeed similar to the power of stars that he had absorbed in the past. The power of stars was a very mysterious power. It was denser and more powerful than the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that he usually absorbed during cultivation. Moonlight essence was a type of power of stars. Its power was naturally not to be underestimated. Therefore, when Xianin was swallowed by the golden dragon, the moonlight essence was completely released. This power repelled the golden dragon's power, which led to the previous scene. Tang Zheng had absorbed the power of stars before, so he didn't feel anything different. It didn't even cause any harm to his body. Instead, it was very beneficial. He was very surprised to see that the moonlight essence had such a great effect on the golden dragon. He also gradually realized that the power of stars was far more powerful than he had imagined. Moreover, the demon lord's attempt to obtain the red lunar beast's core and absorb the moonlight essence for his own use was probably wishful thinking. The reality was far more complicated than the demon lord thought. In fact, Tang Zheng was overthinking it. Once someone consumed the red lunar beast's core, they would have the ability to absorb the moonlight essence. It was natural for the red lunar beast to absorb the moonlight essence to increase its cultivation. There wouldn't be any side effects. Most importantly, the golden dragon didn't consume the red lunar beast's core. Instead, it swallowed Xianin directly. Therefore, the moonlight essence in her body wouldn't disappear with her death. Energy was conserved. When a person died, the energy in their body would merge with heaven and earth. This was a long process, so there wouldn't be any abnormalities. Of course, if the golden dragon swallowed an ordinary person or a normal cultivator, it could also completely digest the energy in their body. In the end, this kind of energy was transformed from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It was similar to the energy that the golden dragon absorbed from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. There wouldn't be any backlash. However, the moonlight essence was different. It was a higher level of energy. It didn't merge with the energy in the golden dragon's body. Instead, it was like a mortal enemy that wanted to kill the other. This caused the two forces to fight against each other. Xuanin's cultivation wasn't any weaker than the golden dragon's. Therefore, the moonlight essence in her body wasn't any weaker than the golden dragon's. Although Tang Zheng didn't completely understand the mystery, he knew that he had to extract the moonlight essence from the golden dragon's body in order to get it out of danger. The golden dragon panicked. It was no longer as calm as before. It said regretfully, Xuanin's body is so different from others. If I knew this, I wouldn't have swallowed her. Tang Zheng had a solution, so he wasn't worried. After all, he was someone who had absorbed the power of the stars with the help of the celestial chess. Therefore, he knew that he could smoothly absorb the moonlight essence. He comforted the golden dragon, "Don't worry. With me here, you'll be fine. I'll absorb the moonlight essence in your body first." Hearing Tang Zheng's words, the golden dragon was skeptical. However, it still chose to believe him in the end. It hurriedly urged, "Then hurry up and absorb this energy." Seeing the golden dragon in pain and worry, Tang Zheng also knew that he couldn't delay any longer. He withdrew his divine sense from the golden dragon's body. Seeing the other three anxiously watching, he explained, "It'll be fine. I have a way to cure it." The others let out a sigh of relief. Tang Zheng didn't say anything else. His mind was immersed in the golden dragon's body again. He circulated the dragon god's secret art and sent his true qi into the golden dragon's body. Both sides cultivated the dragon god's secret art, so when Tang Zheng's true qi entered the golden dragon's body, it didn't resist too much. His true qi successfully captured the moonlight essence. The moonlight essence had already turned into countless strands. It wasn't as simple as he thought. Chapter 1253. The moonlight essence was inextricably linked, and Tang Zheng was even more meticulous. Even though he had met his match, Tang Zheng was not afraid at all. He had to succeed. When a strand of moonlight essence finally entered Tang Zheng's body under the guidance of his vital energy, he did not feel any discomfort. On the contrary, his spirit was shaken, as if he had absorbed the energy himself. His eyes shone, and he was full of spirit. The moonlight essence is actually useful to me. He was overjoyed. Actually, this was a matter of course. After all, the star power he absorbed using heavenly chess was of a higher level than the moonlight essence, so absorbing the moonlight essence was naturally not a problem. After tasting the sweetness, he immediately circulated his power and absorbed the moonlight essence crazily. However, this was a delicate task. After he had absorbed the largest strands of moonlight essence, his speed slowed down significantly. His expression darkened, as he understood that he had reached a bottleneck. The golden dragon's condition improved slightly, and its consciousness became clearer. Seeing this effect, it hurriedly urged, "Hurry up, I feel much better." Tang Zheng wanted to roll his eyes at it. Did it think that this was as simple as buying cabbage in the market? Seeing that Tang Zheng did not speak, the golden dragon understood that the situation had changed. It was not as simple and smooth as it thought, so it asked nervously, "Is there a problem?" Tang Zheng said bluntly, "The moonlight essence is inextricably linked, and there are too many of them. Moreover, many of them are very small, so I have to absorb them all. I can't leave any side effects because I didn't absorb them all. Do you understand?" The golden dragon seemed to understand, but not quite. Seeing this, Tang Zheng added, "There are too many and too small moonlight essence, so absorbing them will take too much time. Do you understand?" The golden dragon suddenly understood. It was a powerhouse, so it immediately understood the difficulties. "I understand. What should I do?" Tang Zheng muttered to himself. After a while, an idea flashed through his mind, and he said, "I have an idea." The golden dragon was overjoyed and asked impatiently. Tang Zheng did not keep it in suspense, and said, "Sky swallowing technique. The sky swallowing technique can absorb many things, so this moonlight essence is naturally not a problem. It's just that the swallowing sky technique doesn't absorb different things. Once I cast the technique, your own power will be taken away as well. I have to think of a way to distinguish it." Of course, the golden dragon understood how unfavorable all of this was to him, but what could he do? For the sake of his own life, he had no choice but to compromise. "It's okay. Come on, I can handle it. Isn't it just a little bit of skill?" The golden dragon was awe-inspiring, like a martyr who was ready to die heroically. Seeing that it had agreed, Tang Zheng did not dawdle. After all, survival was the most important thing. "Then you better be prepared. I'm going to use the sky swallowing technique," Tang Zheng said as he placed his palm on the golden dragon's body. A small black hole appeared in his palm, and the golden light on the golden dragon's scales was immediately absorbed by the black hole. In the blink of an eye, the golden dragon's luster dimmed a little as a lot of it was absorbed by the black hole. Tang Zheng had been deliberately controlling the sky swallowing technique. The sky swallowing technique could absorb many things, including the power of others. In the past, he had absorbed other people's power. This time, he was doing it again, but the target was the golden dragon. The golden dragon's body shook as it immediately felt something strange. Its power was like flowing water, quickly flowing out of its meridians and converging in Tang Zheng's body. At the same time, the essence of the moonlight also flowed into Tang Zheng's body. "Why are you completely fine?" The golden dragon finally came back to his senses, and was in the mood to ponder over the mystery. Tang Zheng said lightly, "I can absorb the power of the stars, so the essence of the moonlight is naturally not a problem." The golden dragon knew a thing or two about the power of the stars. It was shocked, but it did not continue to ask. "You should worry about yourself first. If you can't handle it, then tell me," Tang Zheng said. The golden dragon was silent for a moment, then gritted its teeth and said, "You continue, I can handle it." "That's good." Tang Zheng knew that whether it was Xian Yin's moonlight essence or the golden dragon's power, it would be very beneficial to him. This time, he had accidentally saved the golden dragon and also benefited himself. Of course, he did not dare to be careless. The two powers were like flowing water, pouring out of the golden dragon's body and rushing into Tang Zheng's body. Tang Zheng did not refuse and quickly absorbed the energy, his body gradually releasing a golden light. Because of the sky-swallowing technique, the two powers were absorbed and there was no place to hide. A low groan sounded in Tang Zheng's mind. This was the sound of the golden dragon's power being drained. But since the golden dragon did not tell him to stop, Tang Zheng naturally would not stop. Tang Zheng was like a piece of the sea, constantly absorbing power, the power in his body rapidly increasing. He cultivated the dragon god's secret art, so the golden dragon's power was very beneficial to him. The dragon mark on his forehead bloomed with a golden light, and the golden dragon seemed to be shining brightly, shaking its head and wagging its tail, showing the dragon's power. Tang Zheng naturally saw this scene and understood that this indicated that the little golden dragon would also change. His heart was as calm as water, without any ripples. No matter what happened to the golden dragon, he would be calm. How it developed would depend on the will of the heavens. The golden dragon's power was completely gathered in the dragon mark, and the light in the dragon mark was strong to the extreme. The dragon's eyes opened wide, and two golden lights burst out. A low dragon roar burst out of the little golden dragon's mouth. The golden light gathered under the little golden dragon's abdomen. Suddenly, the golden light was as bright as the sun, piercing people's eyes. The golden light was a kind of golden light, and a small dragon claw gradually condensed and grew from the little golden dragon's abdomen. The six-clawed golden dragon did not see this scene. Otherwise, it would be very surprised, and of course, it would be more distressed. This was its power, but it was benefiting Tang Zheng in vain. Of course, at this time, it did not have the energy to feel distressed. It was mentally weak, and couldn't wait for Tang Zheng to completely absorb the moonlight essence. The moonlight essence flowed through Tang Zheng's 8 extraordinary meridians. Not long after, the moonlight essence gathered in Tang Zheng's zifu, floating above Yuanying's head like an auspicious cloud. This was what surprised Tang Zheng. The golden dragon's power facilitated the formation of the dragon claw. This was a matter of course, but the moonlight essence floating above Yuanying's head seemed to be about to undergo an unexpected change. What kind of change will it be? Tang Zheng moved. Ever since he could not use the heavenly chess, he had not absorbed the power of the stars. But this time, the injection of the moonlight essence allowed him to taste the power of the stars again. He was overwhelmed with emotions, and while constantly urging the sky-devouring technique to absorb the two powers, he looked forward to the changes that were about to happen. Boom! Chapter 1254. Purple lightning flashed and contrasted with Yuanying, giving off a sense of mystery. Boom! The purple lightning let out another loud sound and struck Yuanying's head. Yuanying revealed a pained expression, as if he was resisting the power of the purple lightning. Ping ping. Yuanying's body was surrounded by lightning, flashing and ringing non-stop. If anyone saw this scene, they would be horrified. This was a scene that normal practitioners would not be able to experience. This was Yuanying undergoing the tempering of the purple lightning. The power of lightning was already extraordinary, and purple lightning was one of the best among all lightning. It contained a great amount of power. To temper Yuanying with purple lightning, this could only be done with great luck. Of course, it also required great courage and boldness. In fact, since ancient times, many people had discovered the power of lightning and tried to use it to temper their bodies and Yuanying. However, the power of lightning was too strong, and many people failed in their experiments and turned into charcoal. The famous thunderstorm in history was not just a natural phenomenon. There were many signs of it being thought of. Practitioners took the world into their bodies and formed their own little world. When they cultivated to the extreme, or if they had the ultimate skill to block the door, they could trigger the weather and attract lightning to the mortal world, striking their bodies and shattering their faces. This was a very risky move. Normal people would not dare to try it. Furthermore, many people did not even know about it. Tang Zheng had accidentally absorbed too much of the moonlight essence. The moonlight essence was an extremely powerful energy between heaven and earth. Moonlight essence and lightning energy had the same effect. When the moonlight essence accumulated to a certain amount, it would undergo a qualitative change and become purple lightning. He was completely unaware of how unique his experience was. He subconsciously immersed himself in this state. Purple lightning tempered the body. Small lightning bolts like small snakes swam around the surface of Yuan Ying's body. Gradually, these purple lightning bolts seemed to be unsatisfied with their current results and tried to expand their territory. They broke free from Yuan Ying and spread towards the inner walls of his Zifu. Ping! The purple lightning struck the inner walls of his Zifu. It was as if his Zifu was about to be penetrated. A soul-deep pain was transmitted to Tang Zheng's nerves. Ah! He suddenly raised his head and let out a heart-wrenching scream. The others were frightened by this scene. Fang Shishir was anxious and wanted to rush over to help him, but she was stopped by Empyrean Fairy. Wait a minute. Fang Shishir said anxiously, what's wrong with him? Wasn't he saving the golden dragon? Why is it so painful? Is it dangerous? The Empyrean Fairy couldn't say for sure either. She furrowed her brows and stared at Tang Zheng. She seemed to have sensed something and said, there seems to be a very powerful energy in his body. What kind of energy? Fang Shishir asked. Yan Qingyi also looked at Tang Zheng curiously. Although she had obtained a mysterious inheritance, she did not have a deep foundation. There were many aspects that were unique, but there were still many aspects that were lacking. The Empyrean Fairy had been using her skills to sense this energy. Suddenly, her heart lit up and she exclaimed, the power of lightning. She could already control the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning attacks of the stately painting, so she was naturally familiar with the power of lightning. Therefore, after some investigation, she finally discovered the truth. There was a majestic power of lightning in Tang Zheng's body. This power of lightning was far stronger than ordinary lightning. This was too inconceivable. Although she could control the lightning in the stately painting, it was used for attack and outside of her body. She did not dare to let the lightning enter her body. Her body was not strong enough to withstand the power of lightning. However, at this moment, the lightning had appeared in Tang Zheng's body. She definitely could not be wrong. No wonder Tang Zheng was in so much pain. It was the lightning that was causing trouble. In addition, this lightning was stronger than ordinary lightning, so the pain he was enduring was naturally more intense. He's using lightning to temper his body. The Empyrean Fairy pointed out. After all, she was an experienced and knowledgeable person. Although she could not use lightning to temper her body, her father, the Emperor of Heaven, had gone through this stage in the past. This was a torturous process. Once successful, the harvest would be incomparably huge. The physical body would be stronger, and ordinary attacks would not be able to harm it. In addition, if there was enough opportunity, the physical body could also be used by the lightning. When fighting against the enemy, the lightning could be used to defend the enemy. This was more powerful than the lightning that the Empyrean Fairy used to trigger with the stately painting. The other two did not know about the lightning tempering, so they were a little confused and frightened. To them, lightning was a very powerful thing that should never be touched. Now that Tang Zheng had lightning in his body, wouldn't he be in danger? Fang Shishir couldn't help but grab the Empyrean Fairy's clothes. He's too dangerous. You have to save him. The Empyrean Fairy sighed and shook her head helplessly. There's nothing I can do. I've never experienced lightning tempering before, so I don't dare to trigger it. That's why I can't help him. However, many people in history have done so. Some succeeded, while others failed. What happens if you fail? Fang Shishir asked nervously. She had an ominous premonition in her heart. The Empyrean fairy's expression was indifferent as she softly spat out a word, death. Feng Shishi's entire body trembled, and her face became incomparably pale. She nervously asked, then what about Tang Zheng? Let's wait and see. The other two had no choice but to look at Tang Zheng quietly and hope that he could defeat the lightning. However, the Empyrean fairy muttered in her heart. When other people used lightning to temper their bodies, they used lightning from the outside world. However, there was no lightning just now, so where did he get the lightning from? Could it be that this lightning was born in his body? She was shocked by this thought. Not to mention the Emperor of Heaven, even other people had never heard of such an experience. He's truly unique. She sighed in her heart, feeling that she could not understand him at all. The purple lightning had already spread along the inner wall of the Zifu towards the 8 extra meridians. Not long after, his meridians were filled with purple electric nets, tempering his meridians, muscles, and bones. He screamed miserably, as if the most painful punishment in the world was being inflicted on his body. His facial muscles quickly twisted, making him look extremely frightening. He gradually understood that this was not necessarily a bad thing. In the past, he had always been tempering his body, but he had only used the innate chi to stimulate and temper it. The effect was not bad, but it was far from being as powerful as the purple lightning. In addition, he had also specially cultivated the chaotic Vajra spell, which was a cultivation technique that specialized in cultivating the body. Ever since he had reached the Vajra body, the progress of the chaotic Vajra spell had been extremely slow. The Vajra body was indeed very useful. It was already extremely difficult for ordinary magic treasure to harm him, unless it was an extremely powerful enemy. The chaotic Vajra spell had a total of 5 stages. The Vajra body was the 4th stage, and there was still the most powerful indestructible behind it. Once he reached the indestructible realm, his body would be extremely difficult to destroy. Only a heaven-defying existence would be able to destroy his body. Of course, even if he reached the indestructible body, it was not an immortal body. It was only an immortal body. Once his soul was destroyed, he could also die. For an ordinary person to destroy his soul, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens. This was equivalent to adding a protective layer to himself, and it would be of great benefit when fighting against enemies. The chaotic Vajra spell that had not made any progress until now seemed to be about to make some progress. Tang Zheng's feeling was extremely strong, so no matter how painful it was, he still clenched his teeth and endured it. Thump! The purple lightning swam through his entire body. Not long after, it seeped out of his skin and swam around his body. This scene was clearly seen by everyone else. When they saw the purple lightning, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Is this lightning? Why is it purple? Feng Shishi pointed at Tang Zheng and asked with a trembling voice. Empyrean Fairy also frowned, her heart trembling. She could sense that it was lightning, but she did not expect it to be purple lightning. Purple lightning? How could there be such lightning? Whether it was the lightning that the Emperor of Heaven had used to temper his body, or the lightning that she had drawn out from the mountain river map, they were all white. It was dazzling white. There was a world of difference between the 2 types of lightning. Who was strong and who was weak could be determined with a single glance. The purple lightning was clearly stronger than the white lightning. Why is there such a strange lightning in his body? What caused all of this? She muttered to herself. The other 2 also heard her words and started to mutter in their hearts. She couldn't figure out the mystery behind it. She could only open her eyes wide, as if she didn't want to miss any details. Thump! The purple lightning continued to wander around Tang Zheng's body. His skin was crushed, and cracks appeared on his diamond body. Cracks that looked like broken porcelain appeared on his skin. Ah, this pain was very unbearable. Tang Zheng let out a heart-wrenching scream. When the others saw this scene, they were shocked. Feng Shishi's hands were tightly clasped together. Her palms were covered in cold sweat. Tang Zheng, you can do it. You have to make it. I'll wait for you. She prayed silently. God, you have to make him make it. His skin was completely broken and fragmented. The purple lightning was like small snakes, sometimes drilling into the cracks of his skin, and sometimes coming out. It came and went as it pleased, as if it was entering an uninhabited land. Tang Zheng's scream turned from high-pitched to low. He seemed to be exhausted, and his breath became weak. He fell to the sea, his palm leaving the golden dragon. The golden dragon woke up. It suddenly raised its head and flew into the sky. It let out a deafening dragon roar and looked at Tang Zheng with shining eyes. The moonlight essence in its body had been completely absorbed, and a lot of its power had been absorbed into Tang Zheng's body. It was very distressed, but when it saw Tang Zheng's situation, its heart suddenly tightened. It had just tried to communicate with Tang Zheng with its divine sense, but found that it had failed. Tang Zheng's mind was completely immersed in other aspects, isolated from the outside world. Seeing that the golden dragon had recovered, the others didn't show any signs of relief. Compared to the golden dragon, they were more worried about Tang Zheng. The purple lightning shuttled back and forth. Unknowingly, the cracks stopped expanding and gradually shrank inward. The torn muscles closed again, and the skin gathered together. The cracks were repaired. The purple lightning drilled back into the skin, and a mysterious purple luster appeared on the skin. It quickly disappeared. Tang Zheng still didn't open his eyes. He lay on the sea and didn't remain silent, but a voice in his heart was cheering, Indestructible Body. Chapter 1255. Indestructible Body, this was the 5th stage of the chaotic Vajra spell. If not for luck, it would have been impossible for him to reach this realm. The chaotic Vajra spell was a cultivation technique of the witch clan. The witch clan was strong, so they cultivated this kind of ability. However, very few people had reached the indestructible body realm. The witch clan elders were the best of the best, but they had only cultivated to the diamond body. The witch clan members all pursued an indestructible body. But this time, Tang Zheng had managed to cultivate it. If the witch clan knew about this, they would definitely cheer and celebrate with the entire clan. Tang Zheng stopped screaming, and the heart-wrenching feeling gradually disappeared. However, his emotions had not calmed down yet. This was because the power of the golden dragon had caused other changes. Inside the dragon seal, the 8th dragon claw had already grown out. Tiny dragon scales covered the newly born dragon claw, shining with a brilliant golden light. 8th stage of the dragon god arts. Tang Zheng felt as if he was in a dream. He naturally understood what kind of situation this was, and his heart was in turmoil. The 8th stage of the Dragon God Arts meant that he could go to Langia to explore the 8th floor. What exactly was hidden inside was still something that Tang Zheng was extremely curious about. Actually, he had only just stepped onto the 6th floor of Langia. Back then, due to the time constraints, he did not even have the time to step onto the 7th floor. Now that he could step onto the 8th floor, the 2 floors of Langia were waiting to be excavated. This was indeed an exciting matter. He suppressed the anticipation in his heart and channeled the Dragon God Arts. The little golden dragon inside the dragon seal shook its head and wagged its tail, roaring towards the sky as a brilliant golden light burst out from the little golden dragon's body. In that instant, the golden light pierced through the dragon seal, through the layers of obstructions, and came out from his skin. He was like a dazzling sun, changing the halo from before and dyeing the surrounding sea golden. His eyes suddenly opened, and a golden light shot out, forcing people to look away, not daring to look straight at him. When the others saw him open his eyes, they were both nervous and wanted to cheer. They didn't know if he was good or bad. However, the golden dragon was different. It could see the change in him with a single glance. The Dragon God Arts had actually broken through once again. This is because it absorbed my power. Of course, it understood the reason behind all of this and couldn't help but feel a little angry. It hadn't been long since it grew its 7th claw, and its power had yet to be fully consolidated. Now that it had lost so much of its power, it could be said that its vitality had been greatly damaged. Xian Yin, you really are a troublemaker. Even after you're dead, you still won't stop. You've harmed me again. If I had known that there would be this side effect, I would have made you die even more miserably, the golden dragon cursed. Tang Zheng also did not expect that the golden dragon would swallow Xianin. He had learned from his mistakes and knew that Xianin had a way to resist his soul-searching technique. The soul-searching technique was ineffective, and there was no way to seize information about the sky beyond heaven from her brain. Therefore, he did not waste his energy and let the golden dragon deal with it on its own. The golden dragon cursed in its heart as it observed Tang Zheng. It seemed to want to see what was different about him. Suddenly, roar. Tang Zheng looked up to the sky and let out a long roar that sounded like a dragon's roar coming out of his throat, scaring the others. The whistling stopped, and Tang Zheng calmed down. The golden light on his body and eyes faded away, leaving only a pair of embarrassed and spirited eyes. As long as it was someone who understood Tang Zheng, they would definitely be able to discover that his temperament had undergone an earth-shattering change. When Fang Shishir saw this, she hurriedly rushed over and asked with concern, "How is it?" Tang Zheng faintly smiled and held her hand, saying, "Everything's been taken care of. You were so scary just then. I thought you would leave me." Fang Shishir said with lingering fear. After Tang Zheng comforted her, he turned to look at the golden dragon. The golden dragon also stared at him with wide eyes. "You've broken through to the 4th stage of the dragon god technique." The golden dragon finally spoke. Tang Zheng nodded, "Yes, it's all thanks to you." The golden dragon was extremely conflicted. In the end, it let out a long sigh, saying, "Thank you for saving me." Tang Zheng did not take the credit and said with a bit of shame, "This is also my fault. If I had known that the moonlight essence would cause this kind of side effect, I wouldn't have let you swallow it. I don't regret it. She caused me to be imprisoned for several hundred years. Only by drinking her blood and eating her flesh could I vent the hatred in my heart." The golden dragon said through gritted teeth. Tang Zheng expressed his understanding. If it were him, he would have done the same. "You absorbed the moonlight essence. Is there anything wrong with your body?" The golden dragon asked curiously. Tang Zheng could absorb the moonlight essence and be fine, but it had almost died. The difference between them was obvious. The feeling of being compared to Tang Zheng was very complicated. Tang Zheng looked deeply at the golden dragon, and instantly understood what it was thinking, and said, "This is related to the fact that I used the heavenly chest to absorb the power of the stars. The essence of the moonlight is a type of power of the stars, so I will naturally not suffer a backlash." The golden dragon nodded in understanding. Although it had already guessed the reason, hearing it from Tang Zheng's mouth still made it difficult to hide its complicated feelings. Back then, didn't the demon commander always want to consume the red crescent beast's core and obtain the ability to absorb the moonlight essence? Since you've absorbed Xuanin's moonlight essence, will you inherit her ability? The golden dragon suddenly had an idea and asked on a whim. A light flashed in Tang Zheng's mind. He had never thought about this question before. This sentence suddenly woke Tang Zheng up. He said with some expectation, "You're saying that I might also obtain Xuanin's ability?" If this was true, then it would definitely be an unexpected gain. The golden dragon was also not sure, saying, "It's possible. Why don't you give it a try?" Tang Zheng looked up at the sun hanging high in the sky and said, "It's broad daylight right now. The moonlight essence is not rich, so the test might not be accurate. You won't lose anything by giving it a try." The golden dragon also wanted to know the answer. The Empyrean fairy understood the conversation between the two. She was no stranger to the bizarre red crescent beast. If Tang Zheng really obtained Xuanin's ability, then it would really be a pleasant surprise. Fang Shishir also looked at Tang Zheng encouragingly. The person she loved had a series of fortuitous encounters and great gains, so she was happy from the bottom of her heart. Naturally, she also wanted to get to the bottom of this matter and be reassured. Yan Qingyi did not know the mystery behind it. She did not even know about the Xianin beast, but she was also very interested and looked at him with shining eyes. Seeing that the few of them were impatient to know the answer, Tang Zheng did not continue to refuse. He nodded and said, "All right, as you wish." He closed his eyes and quietly felt the power between heaven and earth. The heaven and earth spiritual chi was more abundant than on land. When it sensed his call, it quickly rushed into his body like a whirlwind. This was not what he wanted. He quickly stabilized his mind and urged his cultivation, trying to sense the moonlight essence. Chapter 1256. A strong sense of summoning was born. He seemed to have sensed the moon in the sky. Although it was broad daylight, the moon was still there. It was just that it was covered by the light of the sun. In the past, although he knew of its existence, he could not communicate with the moon and absorb the essence of the moonlight even if he looked at it with his own eyes. He could only do this with the help of the celestial chess. But this time, it was different. He had a vague sense of the moon. He was very familiar with this feeling. In the past, when he communicated with the stars and guided the power of the stars to descend to the mortal world, he felt this way. He seemed to have understood something, and an indescribable joy flashed through his heart. Could it be that the golden dragon was right? Sure enough, there was a subtle connection between him and the moon. When he activated his power, a vast and mighty moonlight essence descended from the sky, passing through space and arriving at this part of the sea. In an instant, it was as if he was suddenly enlightened. He was enveloped by the essence of the moonlight. The vast and mighty essence of the moonlight rushed from the top of his head into his meridians, flowing towards his 5 viscera and 6 bowels. Finally, it gathered at the top of his Yuanying's head, causing tiny flashes of light to appear on the outside of his Yuanying's body. I really absorbed the moonlight essence. Tang Zheng was as clear as a mirror. His joy was indescribable. The moonlight essence hovered for a long time. Suddenly, it swooped down and drilled into Yuanying's body. In an instant, Yuanying glowed, looking even more mighty and extraordinary. Tang Zheng blinked, and an idea flashed through his mind. Since he had obtained Xuaning's ability, which was the unique ability of the red lunar beast, could he make specific changes to it? Since the moonlight essence was a kind of power of the stars, could he use this method to directly absorb the power of the stars? The essence of moonlight was too simple. The power of the stars was like a treasure trove, containing even more rare treasures. Once he could successfully absorb it, he would not be restricted by the celestial chess at all. He would be able to absorb the power of the stars anytime and anywhere for his own use, increasing his strength and cultivation. Before he had time to quietly feel the power of the stars, a strange scene appeared in the sky, attracting the attention of the other 3 people. The 3 pairs of eyes stared at the sky and exclaimed, "What is that? We have seen this scene in the capital before. It's the blood moon." The blood moon had appeared in the capital before. The Empyrean fairy knew it was because the red lunar beast had absorbed the moonlight essence. She did not expect to see it again in the sea. Everyone looked at this scene with mixed feelings, unable to speak for a long time. It was broad daylight, and there was a sun in the sky. There was also a faintly discernible moonlight. This scene would definitely cause a big commotion. It would become the topic of discussion and research for countless people. Tang Zheng did not take it to heart. He continued to channel his power, absorbing the power of the stars in the sky. The stars were very far away from each other. As Tang Zheng channeled his power, these stars emitted a dazzling light. They passed through the distant space and were faintly discernible in the sky. However, the sky was too far away. The light of these stars was not as strong as the moonlight. Ordinary people could not see them at all. She could see through people who weren't ordinary clearly. The Empyrean fairy and the others were the first to see this scene. Their power was not what it used to be. They were not ordinary people. What's going on? They muttered in their hearts. In the past, when Tang Zheng used the celestial chess to channel the power of the stars, it was always at night. No matter how bright the stars in the sky were or how extraordinary they were not easy to discover. Or perhaps it was too easy to overlook them. Now that they had appeared in broad daylight, it was extraordinary. Naturally, it would attract the attention of those who were interested. It was not just the Empyrean fairy and the others. On the ground, many people also discovered this scene, causing a large reaction. They all treated this scene and the appearance of the moon as a continuous event. As for what mysteries were involved, ordinary people could not guess at all. Everyone racked their brains, wanting to find out the ins and outs of this matter. As for the person involved, he was still immersed in a wonderful state. When he stopped absorbing the power of the stars, the strange scene in the sky gradually disappeared. He raised his head and looked. He shook his head slightly and said with a sigh, although this technique is good, it may not be a good thing to cause too much of a reaction. When the others heard this, they speechlessly rolled their eyes. This was showing off after receiving benefits, being picky and picky. Seeing their reactions, Tang Zheng could not help but laugh. He also knew that he had been too greedy. So many people had tried to obtain this ability. He had only been able to intermittently absorb the power of the stars with the help of the celestial chess. Now, he was not restricted by the power of the stars at all. He could freely absorb the power of the stars at any time. In the future, once he absorbed more and more power of the stars, his cultivation would definitely rise to another level. This would open up a fast track for his cultivation. It was something worth celebrating. The Empyrean fairy gradually calmed down and asked, "What happened to your body just now?" With 3 pairs of eyes watching this scene, Tang Zheng had no way of hiding it. Moreover, they were not outsiders, so he might as well tell them the truth. When they heard about everything that had happened in his body, as well as the many changes that had occurred, everyone was dumbfounded. This series of fortuitous encounters was too much for them to handle. The Empyrean fairy looked at him with a complicated expression. As a person who pursued strength, she wished that she could have the same kind of luck as Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng did not understand the significance of lightning tempering the body, so he calmly said, "No need to make a fuss. This is not a big deal." If this was not a big deal, then what was? The few of them wished they could just blurt out and question him. Seeing the strange looks in everyone's eyes, Tang Zheng's heart moved. He asked, "Could it be that there is some kind of mystery behind this? Lightning tempering the body has existed since ancient times. But for you to produce lightning in your body for no reason and use it to temper your body, this is something that I have never seen before." The Empyrean fairy said in a low voice. After a slight pause, she added, "No, this should be something that has never been heard of before." Eh? Tang Zheng was slightly startled. Although he had never seen lightning tempering the body before, he did not think that it was too rare. After hearing the Empyrean fairy, she realized that this matter was far more complicated than she had imagined. But one thing was for sure, for him, there were no disadvantages, only advantages. Chapter 1257. The thought flashed through Xuaning's mind, but she didn't put it into practice. Tang Zheng realized the extraordinary power of the purple lightning body tempering and rejoiced. All of this was caused by the essence of the moonlight. He had absorbed the power of the stars before, but it was too little after all. It couldn't be compared to the moonlight essence that Xianyin had spent hundreds of years absorbing. "I'll definitely absorb more power of the stars in the future. I don't know how many chain reactions there will be. I'm really looking forward to it." After the interlude with Xianyin, everyone was unable to calm down. After saying a few more words, the golden dragon returned to Tang Zheng's arm. Everything was calm and peaceful. The few of them accompanied each other as they left the sea and set foot on their journey home. Not long after they left, a person suddenly appeared in this calm sea area. If Tang Zheng saw this, he would definitely cry out in alarm. This was the dragon slayer he saw in the illusion of Lengyu Pavilion. He had come to this world through the spatial door earlier. He sensed the existence of a dragon, which was the golden dragon. In addition, he also sensed a looming and ethereal dragon. This was something that had never happened before. It shocked him. He decided to follow the clues and find these 2 dragons. He first followed the clues of the golden dragon and followed it here. Especially when the golden dragon appeared just now and roared. The others didn't notice it, but he did. However, he was still a step too late. Looking at the calm sea, he knew that he had missed the golden dragon. This also confirmed one thing, and that was that he was not chasing after the wrong dragon. There was indeed a golden dragon. There were only 2 dragons in this world, so there must be a connection. If he found this golden dragon, he could naturally find the other one. This was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Of course, he wouldn't let go of this opportunity. He looked in the direction where Tang Zheng and the others disappeared, and the corner of his mouth hooked up into a complacent smile. He muttered to himself, "Little golden dragon, I will find you very soon. After absorbing your dragon soul, I will become even stronger." Whoosh! His figure flashed and disappeared. In the next second, he seemed to have appeared in the sky. His speed was so fast that it made people speechless. Tang Zheng and the others finally returned to Beijing. The others came out of Sumeru world and parted ways. Yan Qingyi left with Yan Luyun and the crew. When Yan Qingyi returned to the Yan family, Yan Patian had already heard a few words from Yan Luyun, especially regarding Yan Qingyi's various miraculous encounters, causing Yan Patian to be unable to sit still. Therefore, he personally went to the door to welcome his daughter back. This was a supreme honor. The other people who didn't know the reason all looked at him. "Father, I'm back." Yan Qingyi looked at her father and said calmly. Yan Patian excitedly took a few steps forward, held her hand and said, "Qingyi, you're finally back." His eyes stared at Yan Qingyi, as if he wanted to find out what was so special about her. In the end, he came to the conclusion that other than his daughter's calmer temperament, which was like an ancient well that made people unable to figure out her, there was no obvious change in other aspects. He did not doubt the news that Yan Luyun had sent back. He knew that his daughter must be too profound, which was why he was unable to see through her. He was extremely excited. He had never interfered with Yan Qingyi's decision. If not for this love, as a disciple of an aristocratic family, how could Yan Qingyi be so leisurely and do whatever she wanted? Without a doubt, if he had stopped Yan Qingyi, there was a high chance that she would not have achieved what she had today. A sense of honor arose spontaneously and filled his heart. He accompanied his daughter to the inner room with a red face. The other unrelated people all retreated. Everyone outside the room had been evacuated, leaving only the 4 core members of the Yan family. Yan Qishan also looked at his sister with mixed feelings. Of course, he was not jealous, he was only happy for his sister from the bottom of his heart. All these years, Yan Qingyi's actions had attracted many people's slander and supercilious looks. Many people talked behind his back and discussed animatedly. As members of the Yan family, their feelings were naturally the most profound. They wanted to clear Yan Qingyi's name, but the matter of prophecy was too mysterious. Most people would not believe it, and it was not suitable for them to spread it out. Therefore, they could only hide it in their stomachs. Now, all of this had taken a huge turn for the better. Everyone couldn't wait to hear Yan Qingyi talk about the mysteries behind it. Just what kind of fortuitous encounter did she have that could cause such a world-shaking change? After Yan Qingyi sat down and saw the urgency in their eyes, he understood what they were thinking. He smiled calmly and said, "If you have any questions, just ask. As long as it's something that can be said, I will definitely tell you." Her attitude towards her family and others was clearly different. This was human nature. Yan Qishan and Yan Luyun looked at Yan Patian at the same time. He was the patriarch, so this question could only come from his mouth. Yan Patian muttered to himself for a few seconds, then asked, "I heard that you inherited Fushi's Tao intent. Is this Tao intent really that powerful?" The few words that Yan Patian had sent back from Yan Luyun were not enough to understand the mystery behind it, so he broke the pot and asked until the end. Yan Qingyi looked deeply at her father, then looked at the impatient eyes of the other 2, and muttered to herself, "Because you're family, there is a sentence that is not suitable to be publicized. I can only tell you that after hearing it, you can pretend that you have never heard it before and completely forget about it. Do you understand?" Seeing her speak so cautiously, the faces of the few people sank at the same time. They were incomparably serious, and the wrinkles at the corner of Yen Potion's eyes also deepened. Qingyi, tell me. I guarantee that other than the few people present, no one else will know. Yen Padian patted his chest and swore to his daughter. Yen Qingyi chose to believe in her father, so she said tirelessly, I have not only inherited Fushi's Dao intent, that is just an excuse to deceive others. Tang Zheng has indeed inherited the genuine Fushi's Dao intent, but what he has obtained is far less than what I have. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Even the Fushi Dao intent that Tang Zheng had inherited was not powerful. Being judged by Yen Qingyi like this, it was definitely not wrong. Then how rich was her harvest that she dared to boast so shamelessly? The others all looked at Yen Qingyi in anticipation, looking forward to hearing a shocking answer from her mouth. Yen Qingyi had indeed lived up to their expectations. In a word, she had said some earth-shattering words. The Fushi Dao insight is only a type of Dao insight. What I inherited is the true Dao insight, and it wasn't mixed with all sorts of nonsense. It's the grand Dao of the heavens and the earth, and it's far more formidable than the Fushi Dao insight. Yen Qingyi's words were earth-shattering, shocking the others to the point that they were dumbstruck. So there was such an inside story. What she had inherited, or rather, what she had obtained, was far greater than all of this. Today, there is only one chapter. It will be recovered tomorrow. Chapter 1258. Yen Potion's chin was about to fall to the ground. The so-called Fushi Dao intent, the great Dao of heaven and earth, was something that he had never heard of before. Are you saying that you got more things than Tang Zheng? Yen Padian digested it for a while and asked hesitantly. In his heart, Tang Zheng was practically invincible, an existence that could not be defeated. Now, his daughter had obtained even more things than Tang Zheng. This was something that he did not dare to imagine. He looked at his daughter again, as if he had never known her before. Yen Qingyi understood her father's feelings and said, yes, Tang Zheng got less than me. Aren't you an ordinary person? Why did you get more than Tang Zheng? Yen Qishan finally could not help but ask. As an elder brother, he understood his sister very well. His thoughts were similar to his father's, and he could not believe that all of this was true. Although Tang Zheng is a cultivator and is powerful, his identity is very awkward. He does not have the chance to inherit the great Dao of heaven and earth, this supreme Dao intent. Yen Qingyi said somewhat proudly. The others still found it hard to come back to their senses. There is no free lunch in this world. You have inherited the great Dao of heaven and earth. Do you have to do something? Yen Qingyi looked at his father with admiration. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Needless to say, he had already guessed the crux of the matter. She did not hide anything and admitted generously, yes, preaching to the world is what I want to do. Preaching to the world? Like those preachers? Those are all bluffs. The Tao I want to impart is the true great Tao of heaven and earth, allowing everyone in the world to become believers. Yen Qingyi's face revealed a resolute expression. The others looked at her as if she was a madman. Why did so many changes happen after going to the gate of heaven? It was as if she had become a completely different person. Yen Qingyi looked at their expressions and said, I know what you're thinking. There's no need for you to do anything about this matter. I've come back this time mainly to give you some instructions, and then I'll leave. The few of them were shocked and quickly asked, where are you going? Preaching the Tao to the world naturally means traveling thousands of miles. In the past, my methods were too limited. To truly comprehend the great Tao, one should walk out. The ancients said that it is better to travel 10,000 li than to read 10,000 books. There is a certain reason for this. Yen Qingyi said without hesitation. The others thought she was even crazier. Yen Qingyi's identity was special, and she didn't have the strength to truss a chicken. In the past, when she went out, there would be people to protect her. This time, she was going to travel thousands of miles and preach to the world. Wouldn't that be dangerous? As his father, Yen Padian naturally wouldn't sit idly by, so he refused without hesitation, no. Yen Qingyi didn't care at all and said, I've already decided. You don't have the power to protect yourself, how can you go out and adventure? Today is different from the past. In this society, cultivators and martial artists coexist, and it's even more dangerous. Yen Padian said worriedly. Yan Qingyi's gaze landed on Yen Luyun, and said, Luyun, you saw me fight with Empyrean Fairy, you should know if I have the power to protect myself? Yen Luyun had never had the chance to speak. Seeing that she had asked him, he couldn't help but recall the scene in the Gate of Heaven. His heart trembled as he stammered, Grandfather, the battle between Ant and Empyrean Fairy left a deep impression on me. I will never forget it for the rest of my life. Ant can easily dodge Empyrean Fairy's attack, as if she can predict her movements in advance. This was the first time Yen Padian and Yen Qishan had heard of this situation. For a moment, their brains seemed to have stopped working. In their impression, Empyrean Fairy was even stronger than Tang Zheng, but Qingyi was actually able to contend against her. Was this still the Yen Qingyi that they were familiar with? How was this still a powerless chicken? He simply had supreme means and completely outshone them. How did you do it? Yen Padian took a deep breath and asked in disbelief. This is the profoundness of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Although my fighting strength is equal to 0, I can predict her attack path. Since I can predict the enemy's advance, I will naturally be at a disadvantage. Yen Qingyi said calmly, as if he was talking about an insignificant matter. Is this because you know the prophecy technique? Yen Padian had an idea and asked. Yen Qingyi said, yes, this is the result of the evolution of the prophecy technique. I can predict the enemy's actions and then make the corresponding evasions. Naturally, no one will be able to hurt me. A huge wave rose in their hearts that could not be calmed down for a long time. The way they looked at her changed again and again. In the end, there were too many things mixed in their eyes that were hard to describe. If the prophecy technique has evolved, then can you predict the future? What will our Yen family become? As the head of the family, Yen Padian was more concerned about the development of the family. Father, you don't have to worry about this. With me here, the Yen family will definitely not fall. As for predicting the future of the Yen family, I am unable to do so for the time being. Didn't your prophecy technique evolve? Yes, but I can only predict the enemy's actions when facing the enemy and predict what will happen a long time in the future. Just like before, sometimes it doesn't work. Yen Qingyi said regretfully. However, I believe that I can successfully predict the future. It's just that I need a deeper understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth to be able to do this. Hearing these words, the few of them fell silent again. Could it be that they really wanted to let her spread the Tao to the world alone? They simply could not predict what kind of impact this would have. Yen Qingyi had already made up his mind, and he emphasized once more. I'll be leaving first this time. If all of you encounter any difficulties or danger, you can go look for Tang Zheng. He has inherited the Fuxi Dao insight, and he'll have an enormous leap in strength. Wait a minute, don't you still have the soul of the Emperor of Heaven in your body? What should we do? The Emperor of Heaven's soul will naturally have a place to return to. You don't have to worry. As for the Empyrean Fairy, just tell her to wait for me to come back. After she finished speaking, she turned around and walked towards the door without waiting for them to react. The few of them looked at each other in dismay, and in the end, their gazes landed on Yen Padian. He let out a long sigh and said faintly, everyone has their own destiny. Since she has already decided, let her continue on her own. Yen Padian had set the tone. Even if the others had different opinions, they could only hide it in their stomachs. But I must give young Master Tang and the Empyrean Fairy an explanation for this matter. I will personally pay them a visit one day and explain this matter to them. Yen Padian made his decision and said. Of course, the matter of the great Tao of heaven and earth and the preaching of the Tao to the world could not be leaked. She had to find a very appropriate reason to dispel the suspicions of others. When Tang Zheng returned home, the others were extremely excited. What a joyous scene, they kept asking questions at the same time. Xiao Bai seemed to be angry, like a little wife, he laid on Tang Zheng's shoulder dejectedly. Tang Zheng knew what it was thinking. It was complaining that he did not bring it along with him this time. He spent a lot of effort to comfort it for a long time before the little fellow finally regained its vitality. When the Scarlet Moon Beast heard that Xian Yin was dead and that it had gotten its revenge, it was so happy that it could not control itself. With a bang, it directly knelt in front of Tang Zheng. Last time, when Tang Zheng refused to let the Scarlet Moon Beast kill Xian Yin, the Scarlet Moon Beast still had some complaints in its heart. Now that Xian Yin was dead, although she did not die in its hands, it still meant that his wife's death had finally been avenged. The Scarlet Moon Beast kept kowtowing to Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng quickly helped it up. Looking at the Scarlet Moon Beast's tear-filled eyes, he could not help but sigh. He felt that Xian Yin deserved it even more. She had harmed so many people, she deserved to die. You have avenged my wife. I will remember this favor. The Scarlet Moon Beast said sincerely. If it had submitted to Tang Zheng previously because of Xiao Bai, it was much more sincere now. You are too kind. You have a close relationship with Xiao Bai. This is what I should do. Moreover, Xian Yin deserved it. Tang Zheng said. I observed the strange phenomenon in the sky just now. You have inherited the ability of us Scarlet Moon Beasts to absorb the essence of moonlight, right? The Scarlet Moon Beast looked at Tang Zheng and asked. Yes. Tang Zheng admitted generously. This ability is something that many people dream of. This is also one of the reasons why our Red Lunar Beast clan is becoming rarer and rarer. Some of us even went extinct. You are lucky to have inherited this ability. I hope that you will use it well. The Red Lunar Beast clan said earnestly. Tang Zheng suddenly had an idea and asked, other than absorbing the essence of moonlight, can you Scarlet Moon Beasts also absorb the power of stars? The power of stars? The Scarlet Moon Beast was stunned. It did not understand and looked at Tang Zheng blankly. In the end, it shook its head and said, no. Tang Zheng understood. It seemed that he had absorbed the power of stars with the help of the celestial chess. That was why he had this ability. As night fell, everyone else fell into a deep sleep. Tang Zheng spent most of the day accompanying his family. In the dead of night, he rejected Lu Qingmei and the others' flirtatious glances and went to the training room alone. Since he had reached the 8th level of the Dragon God technique, there were 2 floors in the Langia Pavilion waiting for him to explore. The outside world was full of dangers and unpredictable dangers. All the more reason for him to take the time to explore the Langia Pavilion and see if he could find anything new. Today, he needed more power more urgently than before. He planned to discuss with the Devil Race about strengthening the space gate between the 2 worlds. He needed to be strong enough. Only then would he be qualified to sit at the negotiating table. Qi Yu and the Devil Race were powerful and could kill without batting an eyelid. If he was not strong enough, he was afraid that there would be no way for him to discuss this matter. He calmed down and circulated the Dragon God technique. With a flash of golden light, he appeared in front of the Langia Pavilion. The towering Langia Pavilion was still standing quietly in front of him. He raised his head and took a deep look at it. His heart was filled with anticipation. He walked over the threshold and walked in. He climbed up to the 6th floor in one breath. When he reached the 6th floor, the illusion did not appear again. It was obvious that it was only effective for the first time. He walked to the 7th floor and carefully stepped on the wooden stairs. He walked up to the 7th floor step by step. The 7th floor of the Langia Pavilion, here I come, a voice shouted in his heart. Author's digression, there will be a second chapter tonight. Chapter 1259. On the 7th floor of Langia, Tang Zheng stepped onto the last step and stood firmly on the 7th floor. Although he had already stepped onto the first 6 floors, every time he stepped onto a new floor, he could not hide the excitement in his heart. What entered his eyes was a stretch of snow white. He was startled and did not understand what was going on. In the next second, a name flashed through his mind. White clouds. This large cloud that looked like cotton candy was actually the clouds in the sky, floating in front of him just like that. How could there be white clouds in Langya? He frowned and was confused. He stared at the white clouds in a daze, not knowing what to do. The surroundings were dead silent. There was no guidance at all. He hesitated slightly and walked towards the white clouds step by step. The white clouds did not move. He circled around the white cloud, not knowing where to start. This massive white cloud left him with no idea what to do. He stretched out his finger and poked the white clouds. The white clouds were pressed into a pit. When he released his finger, the white clouds bounced back and returned to normal. Ah, this is interesting. His eyes lit up and he smacked his lips. The things in Langya were definitely not ordinary, especially on the 7th floor. It was definitely not ordinary. It was just that he had not figured it out yet. He was not a person who gave up easily. He knew that there were tigers in the mountain, but he still walked towards it. I don't believe that my hand can't rush in. He shouted and activated the Dragon God technique. A dazzling golden light flickered on his finger. He stomped his heel and rushed fiercely towards the white clouds. His outstretched finger was like a sharp sword. Poof! This time, his finger easily pierced into the white clouds. Then, his entire body rushed into the white clouds. The surroundings were completely covered by the white clouds. He waved his arms with all his might, trying to chase away the white clouds so that he could see clearly what was in front of him. After waving his arms a few times, his eyes suddenly opened up. The blue sky was reflected in front of him. White clouds floated in the sky. It was a scene of white clouds high in the sky. He looked around and saw nothing but white clouds. What's going on? Why did I suddenly come to this world? He muttered to himself, at a loss. Miraculously, he did not circulate his energy, nor did he fall from the sky. He looked down and could not see the situation below at all. Something strange. His heart was filled with awe, and he became extremely alert. According to his past experience, although Langya contained treasures, it also contained dangers at the same time. If he was slightly careless, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. Not to mention treasures, even his life would be difficult to protect. He walked forward step by step as if he was walking on flat ground. White clouds were scattered all around him. They were like jasper pearls sprinkled in the sky, adorning the blue sky. When he passed by a white cloud, it actually flew away with a whoosh. Eh? Tang Zheng was shocked. He stared straight at the white cloud. He saw that the white cloud seemed to have a life of its own. It moved far away, as if it didn't like Tang Zheng coming close. What's going on? He was confused. With a thought, he walked toward another white cloud. Whoosh! The same thing happened. That white cloud also fled, as if it was afraid that it would be too late. He was stunned. He looked around and realized that the white clouds around him seemed to have grown pairs of eyes. They had been looking at him vigilantly. This feeling of being watched was very uncomfortable. It made him feel as if he was sitting on pins and needles. He snorted coldly and thought to himself, I don't believe that I can't figure out what's going on. He also had a little understanding in his heart. The treasures on the 7th floor of Langya must be related to these white clouds. The white clouds seemed to be a world. He had broken into this world, so he must have some gains in this world. Perhaps, the so-called treasures were related to these white clouds. But first, he had to catch a white cloud to solve the puzzle. I don't believe that I can't catch a white cloud. He looked around at the sparse white clouds. There were so many of them. It was impossible that he couldn't catch a single one. That would be too inferior. His feet swayed. Like lightning, his eyes locked onto the nearest white cloud. He rushed toward it with a whoosh. The white cloud seemed to have seen through his intentions. Seeing that he was about to get close, it flew away again with a whoosh. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth. He was determined. He stared at the target without blinking. He thought to himself, if I don't catch you, my surname isn't Tang. His speed was also very fast. He was like a ray of light, streaking across the sky. However, the white cloud was faster. Moreover, this white cloud was very smart. It used other white clouds as a shield and specifically hid behind them. The other white clouds also reacted quickly, but they were always one step slower than this white cloud. Although they didn't want to be a shield, they still couldn't get what they wanted in the end. That white cloud was like a fairy, shuttling back and forth among the white clouds. Moreover, its shape was no different from the other white clouds. It was easy for Tang Zheng to confuse it. It seemed to be deliberately playing with Tang Zheng, knowing that he couldn't catch up with it. Huff huff. Tang Zheng chased after it for a long time, panting heavily. But in the end, he was still helpless. He could only watch as the target hid here and there. He was helpless. Seeing that Tang Zheng stopped chasing, the target also stopped. Seeing that Tang Zheng didn't catch up with it for a long time, it actually swaggered back. Tang Zheng's eyes widened. He shouted, "You're really a demon, aren't you? How dare you play with me?" The target swayed a few times, as if it was showing off. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth, but there was nothing he could do. This white cloud was like a child. It was very playful, but its strength couldn't be underestimated. He muttered in his heart, "What's the use of this thing hidden in the 7th floor of Langia? What's so special about these white clouds to him?" Other than running fast, there didn't seem to be any other characteristics for the time being. Could it be that there was an extraordinary treasure hidden in the white clouds? He couldn't guess. Everything could only be revealed when he caught the white cloud. He had been played with by this white cloud for so long that he had long recognized it. He directly ignored the other white clouds. If he didn't catch it, he would never give up. He panted and pretended to be exhausted. But from the corner of his eyes, he glanced at the target and found that it had swaggered back to not far away from him. It seemed to be sure that Tang Zheng couldn't catch up with it, so it became very unscrupulous. Tang Zheng had an idea and a plan came to his mind. Although this white cloud ran fast, its wisdom was obviously not comparable to a human's. Obviously, the white cloud was careless and swaggered back. It fell into the trap. Tang Zheng deliberately bent his body and panted heavily. But from the corner of his eyes, he kept staring at the white cloud. He saw that it was bold enough to come to a place only a few steps away from him before stopping. Then, it seemed to be sizing him up. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed and he secretly shouted, "I've been waiting for this." Chapter 1260. Like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey, Tang Zheng pounced on the white cloud, but a strong elastic force bounced back, trying to shake him off. Tang Zheng finally caught it, so how could he just let it go? So, he grabbed it firmly with both hands, his fingers digging into the cloud. The white cloud struggled madly, trying to get rid of Tang Zheng. However, Tang Zheng would not let go no matter how hard the white cloud struggled, to no avail. Tang Zheng was competing with the white cloud, thinking to himself, "I can't control you." With a stomp of his foot, Tang Zheng's body immediately stabilized, as if his legs were rooted in the sky, firmly trapping the white cloud. However, this advantage did not last long. The white cloud flew up with a whoosh, jumping up and down. "Ah!" Tang Zheng cried out in surprise. A strong airflow poured into his mouth, forcibly stopping his scream. His eyes widened, understanding the white cloud's intention. "You think you can get rid of me like this? Dream on." Tang Zheng secretly gritted his teeth, letting the white cloud drift around. He was like a tail, swinging here and there. If it was a normal person, they would have been flung away by this fierce force. However, Tang Zheng's fingers were locked in the white cloud, not giving it a chance to break free. Both parties were in a deadlock, as if they were competing for patience. After an unknown amount of time, the white cloud slowed down, as if it was exhausted. Tang Zheng's expression was not good, and he could not hide his exhaustion, but his eyes showed the light of victory. He finally won. Although no one announced his victory like the referee, he knew he had won. He had survived the white cloud's resistance, so he had won. The white cloud regained its calm, like a defeated soldier, dejected, flying slowly in the sky. Tang Zheng's entire body was lying on top of the white cloud, soft as if he was lying on a soft bed. This feels really good. He lazily lay on the white cloud, looking at the sky. There was no sun, only clouds. Suddenly, his vision blurred, and the other white clouds disappeared, leaving only this one white cloud. 3 snow-white words appeared in his mind. Somersault cloud. Tang Zheng looked at the 3 words and read them out loud. He was shocked. What the hell was the somersault cloud? Whoosh! As soon as this thought flashed through his mind, Bai Yunfei, who was underneath him, dashed out at an extremely fast speed, not at all slower than before. He subconsciously wanted to hold on to White Cloud, afraid that it would throw him off. However, his worries were unfounded. White Cloud was very peaceful. It was so stable that it was as if it was on land. There was not the slightest bump. Huh? Tang Zheng's eyes widened in astonishment as he stared at the white cloud beneath him. He seemed to have realized something. Could it be that the so-called treasure was this white cloud? He had tamed it and then it submitted to him. No one answered the question. Tang Zheng suppressed the excitement in his heart and prepared to find out the truth. White cloud's flying speed is so fast, and I can stay on top of it without worrying about falling from the clouds. This means that it is like a means of transportation. Tang Zheng analyzed little by little and finally came to a conclusion. Can I control it on my own now? He was moved and decided to give it a try. To the left. He let out a shout. White Cloud, which was originally flying straight, turned to the left at a strange angle. Tang Zheng was almost shaken off. He patted his chest with lingering fear and his eyes shone brightly. Success, I can really control this somersault cloud. He laughed wildly and shouted, up. Whoosh! The somersault cloud flew up like a fighter jet suddenly rising. The angle was also very tricky as it soared into the sky. Tang Zheng did not have the feeling of falling from the somersault cloud. He seemed to have reached some kind of tacit understanding with the somersault cloud. No matter how the somersault cloud flipped, it was as if he was walking on flat ground. This made him even more surprised. He carefully stood up from the somersault cloud and no longer lay on it. However, he still did not fall. His feet seemed to be connected to the somersault cloud. He soared into the sky and enjoyed the extraordinary feeling brought by the somersault cloud. This was more comfortable and faster than the sword kinesis flight in the past. When he used the sword kinesis flight, he had to use his inner power to control Battle Soul. However, the somersault cloud did not need this at all. It also did not require him to use his inner power. It saved him energy and worry. The items in Langia Pavilion are indeed extraordinary. This somersault cloud is much better than sword kinesis flight. Battle Soul has fallen into Chiyu's hands. It's just nice to use the somersault cloud as a means of transportation. It's just that the somersault cloud is so big. It can't just follow me like this. That would be too shocking. As soon as he finished speaking, he realized that the somersault cloud under his feet was changing. It was becoming transparent bit by bit. What's going on? Tang Zheng was shocked and exclaimed. The somersault cloud's change was very fast. In a short while, it was completely transparent and disappeared. Without the somersault cloud, Tang Zheng's head trembled and he fell rapidly from the sky. The wind whistled past his ears, making his heart tremble. Somersault cloud! Tang Zheng shouted. He was quick-witted. His falling momentum came to an abrupt stop. A white cloud stopped steadily under his feet, preventing him from falling any further. His eyes lit up as he understood another key point. It turned out that the somersault cloud could be summoned. When he did not use it, the somersault cloud would disappear automatically and not be visible to the naked eye. Only when he needed it, he just had to shout and the somersault cloud would appear under his feet. This was many times more powerful than sword kinesis flight. This is too surprising. He pressed his hand to his chest and could not calm down for a long time. He controlled the somersault cloud and flew in the sky. It was as if it was tailor-made for him. There was no discomfort at all. The feeling of being able to fly to his heart's content was unforgettable. There were so many white clouds in the sky just now. When I tamed the somersault cloud, those white clouds disappeared immediately. There must be a mystery behind this. Tang Zheng stood on the somersault cloud and held his chin with 2 fingers. He was deep in thought. Could it be that every dragon tribe member can choose one of those white clouds when they step onto the 7th level of Langya Pavilion? From there, they can control the white clouds. Once one white cloud is tamed, there's no need for the other white clouds to exist. That's why they disappeared. His guess was very close to the truth. In fact, since ancient times, in many legends and the knowledge of humans, the dragon tribe was inseparable from the ability to control clouds and rain. In terms of controlling clouds and rain, the other tribes could not be compared to the dragon tribe. In fact, this knowledge was not completely wrong. The dragon tribe was indeed very talented in controlling clouds and rain. When the dragon tribe reached a certain level and obtained the corresponding remarkable powers and treasures in Langya Pavilion, this skill could be displayed perfectly. The ability to control clouds was the key point. The 7th level of Langya Pavilion was a sky of clouds. After every dragon tribe member entered the sky of clouds, they would tame one of the white clouds. From there, they would understand the remarkable powers of controlling clouds. This was the foundation for the ability to control clouds and rain. However, there was one thing that Tang Zheng did not know. When the dragon tribe tamed a white cloud, these white clouds were not the somersault cloud. The somersault cloud that he tamed was very special. It was completely different from the other white clouds. In the past, some dragon tribe members had encountered the somersault cloud by chance and tried to tame it. However, in the end, they returned without success. In the end, a rule was passed down among the dragon tribe. One should never try to tame the somersault cloud in the sky of clouds. That would be a waste of opportunity. This was because the dragon tribe only had one chance to enter the sky of clouds. If they failed to tame the white clouds, they would lose the chance to tame the white clouds forever. In the future, they would not be able to control clouds and rain. Without this remarkable powers, how could they be called the dragon tribe? Tang Zheng did not have anyone to guide him. He was like a newborn calf that was not afraid of tigers. Therefore, he was not afraid of anything. By chance, he encountered the somersault cloud. In the end, with his extraordinary perseverance and strength, he finally tamed the somersault cloud. This was something that many dragon tribe members dreamed of. However, after being taught a hard lesson by countless dragon tribe ancestors, they all chose to follow their ancestors' instructions and not daydream about taming the somersault cloud. As the saying goes, fortune favors fools. No one would have thought that Tang Zheng would be able to tame the somersault cloud. When he was done tossing and turning in the sky, he slowly came to a stop. However, a ripple appeared in the sky. This ripple was like a stone thrown into a lake. The ripple spread out and the sky began to fluctuate. The scene in front of him slowly became illusory. Before he could react, the scene in front of him changed abruptly. The sky disappeared, and so did the somersault cloud. He was back in the Langya Pavilion. In front of him was a white cloud. He was standing in front of the white cloud. Without a doubt, this white cloud was definitely not the somersault cloud. His hand gently touched this white cloud. It was as if he wanted to return to the illusion just now. In the end, he realized that it was all in vain. His fingers could not poke into the white cloud at all. Even if he used all his strength, it was all in vain. He gradually understood that the illusion just now could only be entered once. He was not a greedy person. Since things had come to this, he did not wish to go in again. Moreover, he now had the somersault cloud. This was his greatest gain. He looked down at his feet. It was the floor. With a thought, he called out, "Somersault cloud." In the blink of an eye, there was a snow-white cloud under his feet. If it was not the somersault cloud, what else could it be? He had successfully brought the somersault cloud out of the illusion. His eyes lit up. He could not wait to leave the Langia pavilion and test the power of the somersault cloud in the real world. When the time came, he would not have to worry about being discovered by other enemies or fighter jets when he rode the somersault cloud in the sky. He could hide perfectly in the clouds. How would his enemies expect him to hide in a white cloud? This was an excellent way to hide his tracks. However, he eventually suppressed his restless thoughts. After carefully observing the somersault cloud, he made the somersault cloud disappear with a thought. He took a deep look at the white cloud in the middle of the 7th floor. Then, he turned and walked to the 8th floor. At the staircase, he subconsciously stopped and looked up. Although it was only a dozen steps, he would definitely not be able to see the mystery above if he did not walk up. Therefore, he lifted his leg and stepped on the stairs. Chapter 1261. Thump, thump, thump. Tang Zhen crossed the stairs one by one and stood on the 8th floor of the Langia pavilion. A humid smell assaulted his nostrils along with the sound of rain hitting banana leaves. It sounded like large and small pearls falling on a jade plate, ding dang dang, and it kept ringing. Tang Zhen was slightly startled. He did not expect such a big movement on the 8th floor. He was not frightened. Instead, he widened his eyes curiously and looked at everything in front of him. It was a heavy rain, and the rain fell from the endless sky. His feet were wet, and thousands of water lines spread to his feet from all directions. His gaze was solemn as he muttered to himself, "The 8th floor is rain. What's the mystery behind it?" He shook his head. He could not figure it out, so he could only walk forward. His feet landed on the water, and water droplets splashed everywhere like pearls. He had only taken a few steps when he felt something. He turned around and saw that the stairs to the 8th floor had disappeared. He was standing in a world of rain. Undoubtedly, this was another illusion, but it was very real. The feeling of the raindrops hitting his face was no different from the real world. The Langia pavilion is full of illusions. It's really impressive. I wonder which almighty dragon built the Langia pavilion. He could not help but sigh. Since the 8th floor was rain, it must be related to the rain. He shuttled back and forth in the rain for a while, but he did not have any inspiration. The rain covered the world, and there was rain in every corner. He could not lock onto a white cloud and use all his skills like he did on the 7th floor. This time, even if he had endless strength, he could not find a target and was at his wit's end. This was the worst situation. What should I do? He lowered his head and ignored the rain. The rain grew heavier and heavier. It hit his head, cheeks, and shoulders hard. He became a drowned rat. He could have activated his power to block the rain, but he did not do so because he wanted to sense the mystery. Instead, he completely exposed himself to the rain. After half a day, it was useless. He frowned and looked at the rain helplessly. He was at a loss. Just as he was at his wit's end and was about to go crazy, a white cloud gradually appeared in the rain. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted as he stared at the somersault cloud. He exclaimed to himself, "Why did the somersault cloud appear by itself?" The somersault cloud appeared on its own and revealed its tracks. Facing the downpour, it soared into the sky. Tang Zheng seemed to have understood something. With a leap, he jumped onto the somersault cloud. Like a beam of light, he flew into the sky, towards the end of the rain. As far as the eye could see, there was no more rain in the sky. However, the ground was still covered in rain. "Somersault cloud, what do you want me to do?" Tang Zheng had a feeling that the somersault cloud was trying to give him some sort of hint. However, the somersault cloud could not speak, so it could only express itself with actions. Whoosh! A wind began to blow in the sky. The rainwater rose against the current, and instead of falling down, it floated up into the sky. Ah! Tang Zheng had never seen such an abnormal scene. Rainwater flying into the sky, if this was not strange, then what was? Before he could figure out what was going on, the rainwater rushed into the somersault cloud. The somersault cloud was like a person who drank a stomach full of water, rapidly expanding. Tang Zheng stepped on the somersault cloud and had the illusion that he was stepping on a swamp with water under his feet. Tang Zheng did not know what was going on, so he could only activate the Dragon God technique. The Dragon God technique was the key to everything. At his wit's end, using this technique should be the most effective and safest method. Sure enough, when he activated the Dragon God technique, there was a subtle change in the world. It was as if everything was still for 3 seconds. He could even see the rainwater in the sky solidifying. Tang Zheng was secretly delighted. The Dragon God technique was indeed effective. At the same time, a purple lightning bolt leaped out from Yuanying's body and followed his meridians to the surface of his body. Kacha! A sudden clap of thunder exploded in the sky. The purple lightning fell into the somersault cloud, and the snow-white somersault cloud was immediately dyed purple. Electric lights scuttled through the clouds like agile electric snakes. It was as if a bolt of lightning had flashed across Tang Zheng's head. He was shocked, and a feeling of enlightenment arose spontaneously. His eyes lit up as he muttered to himself, "So that's how it is, so that's how it is. I was almost blinded by a single leaf." The corner of his mouth curled up, revealing a relieved smile. It turned out that the 7th and 8th floors were connected. The somersault cloud and the rainwater in the 8th floor were closely related. The Dragon Clan was particular about clouds and rain. He had a cloud, and that was the somersault cloud. Not only could he ride it for long distances, but he could also travel through the clouds. Summoning rain was naturally another aspect, and that was the ability that the 8th floor would bestow upon him. The physical body and the physical body were two inseparable parts that complemented each other. Only then would the somersault cloud automatically appear and fly into the sky. The rainwater that filled the sky would converge towards the somersault cloud. Such an anomaly seemed perfectly normal to him at the moment. The Dragon God technique had awakened him. That lightning-like light was emitted from the dragon mark. He looked at the rich rainwater contained in the somersault cloud. He opened his hands wide and suspended them above the somersault cloud. After circulating the Dragon God technique, an invisible force spread out from his palms and enveloped the somersault cloud. Water gathers clouds, clouds give birth to water. Lightning as the guide, clouds and rain. He muttered as he stretched out his hand and tapped the somersault cloud a few times. A few streams of energy flew into the somersault cloud. Kacha! A bolt of purple lightning split open the somersault cloud and fell from it, drawing a long purple line between heaven and earth. The sky seemed to have been split into two by this bolt of purple lightning. The terrifying pressure of the lightning made people shudder. Tang Zheng had seen the lightning released by the thundercloud beast, and it was far less powerful than the purple lightning. He smacked his lips and clicked his tongue in wonder. This purple lightning formed from the essence of the moonlight is really a huge gain. It seems like I have to study it carefully in the future. He suppressed the many emotions in his heart and focused his attention on the scene in front of him. After the lightning fell, the rain in the sky poured down and sprinkled on the ground. The downpour was even heavier than before. As the rain pattered on the ground, pits appeared one after another. Water dripping pierces stone. His pupils shrank as he stared at the small pits. These were the pits formed by the rain. As the saying goes, water dripping pierces stone. This was the result of months and years of accumulation. However, the scene in front of him was completed in an instant. He could imagine how powerful the force contained in the rain was. The rain in the sky was like a fierce attack, causing people to raise their eyebrows. If it is a large-scale attack like the clouds summoning rain against the enemy, of course, it can't be underestimated. Waves surged in his heart. They were facing a lot of enemies now, and there might be more in the future. It was inevitable that there would be friction with the large army. Although the attacks were fierce, the area of effect was too small. This cloud summoning rain attack could be considered powerful as it could attack the enemy in a large area. I thought the cloud summoning rain attack was just for show and didn't have much power. I didn't expect it to have such power. This is really shocking. The dragon tribe is indeed the dragon tribe. Even the things obtained in the Langya Pavilion are so powerful, not to mention the various mystiques that I specially cultivated. However, he didn't know that although the dragon tribe had the cloud summoning rain attack, their attacks were far less powerful. He had such a shocking effect because he was strengthened by the power of the purple lightning. After the rain fell, there were densely packed small pits on the ground. It was more spectacular than the surface of the moon. He rode the somersault cloud and flew down from midair. The sky had cleared up. There was no more rain or lightning. The moment the purple lightning split the somersault cloud, it flew into the sky and merged with the earth. Tang Zheng's Yuanying could produce this kind of purple lightning, so he didn't care. If it was an ordinary person, they would probably try their best to get the purple lightning back. Looking at the densely packed pits on the ground, he could imagine how terrifying the power was just now. He took a deep breath and was greatly encouraged. He stepped on the small pits and walked forward step by step. He was like a general inspecting the fruits of victory, not letting go of any details. As he walked, the scene in front of him became ethereal. He was stunned and raised his head. The world in front of him had disappeared, and he had returned to the Langya Pavilion. The Langya Pavilion was empty, and there was not a single thing in it. However, everything that had happened just now was extremely real. He could imagine how much magical power was hidden in this seemingly empty place. The somersault cloud disappeared again. Tang Zheng measured the floor underground with his feet and didn't find any clues. He could only give up. Anyway, he had already gotten what he wanted. He had learned the cloud summoning rain attack. When he activated the Dragon God technique, the somersault cloud would appear. Then, water would gather into clouds, clouds would give birth to water, and with lightning as a guide, the cloud summoning rain attack would be completed. If there is a drought somewhere, I can use this method to resolve the drought. This is much more reliable than praying to the heavens for rain. Of course, this was just his wishful thinking. He looked around the 8th floor again, and then walked down the stairs one by one. In the past, he would try to go to a higher floor. Now that he had repeatedly hit a wall, he understood the rules. If the Dragon God technique did not reach a higher level, it would be useless even if he was badly beaten. There was no way he could go to a higher floor. Instead, he would be kicked out of the Langya Pavilion because of his recklessness. He could only enter the Langya Pavilion again after a month. Tang Zheng saw that it was still early. Since the Langya Pavilion did not kick them out, it meant that they could continue to stay in the Langya Pavilion. However, there was no place in the Langya Pavilion that he wanted to explore. Therefore, he left the Langya Pavilion step by step. When he raised his head and saw the huge horizontal board, a shadow flashed across his mind. It was an inverted tower. It was exactly the same as the Langya Pavilion, except that it was inverted. He remembered the Golden Dragon's repeated reminders to not go to the space outside the Langya Pavilion. He had already been there once and gained a lot. This time, he still had time. Of course, he would not waste his time and opportunity. Chapter 1262. He walked in the opposite direction of the Langya Pavilion and went deep into the thick fog. The fog was the same as before, causing him to lose his sense of direction instantly. He followed the feeling he had previously. This was not the outside world, but the Langya Pavilion. He could not fly, so his speed was not fast. He suddenly had an idea. Could he use the somersault cloud here? Thinking of this, he was excited and decided to give it a try. Somersault cloud. He shouted, and the somersault cloud appeared under his feet. Rise! At his command, the somersault cloud flew up smoothly at an extremely fast speed. It was like a whirlwind rushing into the fog, leaving a long trail behind. Suddenly, a mysterious feeling arose spontaneously. He was overjoyed as he knew that he was heading in the right direction. The reason he was searching in this fog was to find that feeling. Back then, he was stepping on air, but he couldn't fly, so he quickly fell down. This time, he had the somersault cloud and did not need to fall anymore. He could control his speed on his own. This is the place. He fixed his gaze on the fog below him. He stepped on the somersault cloud and swooped down. As expected, he had already exceeded the height of the ground, but he did not collide with any obstacles. Instead, he flew down smoothly. The somersault cloud is extraordinary. It is not restricted by the dragon seal and can move freely. In the outside world, it is probably even more powerful. He was excited and his eyes were filled with anticipation. Bang! With a dull sound, the somersault cloud collided with a hard object. However, the somersault cloud absorbed all the impact and did not hurt Tang Zheng at all. He knew that this was the end. His vision suddenly opened up and there was not a single bit of fog. A huge inverted Langya pavilion stood in front of him. I am finally here again. He jumped down from the somersault cloud, which disappeared without a trace. He walked into the Langya pavilion step by step. After passing through the simple and unadorned door, the forest of steels was exposed to his eyes. This was different from the previous time. He knew how powerful the dragon soul was. It was something that dragon slayers dreamed of. Although these were only the steels on the first floor, each of them contained a dragon soul. Regardless of their strength, they were all vital to him. Once he absorbed the dragon soul, it would be greatly beneficial to the dragon god technique. Tang Zheng took a deep look and thought that the dragon slayer was really despicable. He was digging up the ancestral grave of the dragon clan to strengthen himself. No wonder the dragon clan saw the dragon slayer as their mortal enemy. If it were him, he would have done the same. Last time, Tang Zheng had accidentally absorbed a dragon's soul and gained a lot. But this time, he did not plan to absorb a dragon's soul. His relationship with the dragon clan was inextricably linked. Moreover, he had subdued the golden dragon, so how could he be so heartless as to absorb the dragon's soul? He was not like the dragon slayer who had no bottom line and would do anything to make himself stronger. He went down to the 6th floor in one go. Last time, he was blocked when he went down to the 6th floor. He guessed that this was related to the realm of the dragon god technique that he cultivated. It was like another Langya pavilion. What cultivation level would one need to reach the corresponding floor? He successfully descended to the 6th floor, and his guess was completely confirmed. His heart was calm, and as far as the eye could see, it was a barren expanse of space. He took a step forward, and the scene changed drastically. A simple and unadorned forest of tombstones appeared in front of him. He could only see the tombstones on each floor when he was in the middle of it. Each tombstone buried a powerful dragon clan cultivator. There were more than 100 tombstones on the 5th floor, but there were only about 80 tombstones on the 6th floor. This meant that the dragon clan cultivators buried on this floor were more powerful, and their dragon souls were more powerful. He subconsciously pressed his hand on a tombstone. Roar! With a dragon's roar, a golden dragon rose from the tombstone. It was shining with golden light and circled in the air, looking down at Tang Zheng. Although there was no trace of hostility, the dragon's might was still breathtaking. Tang Zheng had the dragon god technique, and his cultivation was not weak. Of course, he would not feel uncomfortable. If it were others, they would have already prostrated themselves on the ground, not daring to move at all. On the contrary, the dragon chi in his body was also restless, especially the 8-clawed little golden dragon in the dragon seal. Its eyes were shining with an urgent look, as if it wanted to climb out and fly toward the dragon's soul in the sky. He forcibly suppressed this thought. He did not want to absorb the dragon's soul. He just wanted to cross the floors and see if there was anything else in this inverted Langya pavilion other than the tombstones. He took a step back without hesitation, and his hand left the tombstone. The dragon's soul in the air rushed toward the tombstone and circled around it. After a while, it disappeared. Tang Zheng turned and left the 6th floor, and continued to go deeper. There were only about 50 tombstones on the 7th floor. He followed the same pattern and observed the dragon's soul again. It was indeed more powerful than the dragon's soul on the 6th floor. His judgment was correct. With every floor down, the dragon's soul hidden within would become even more powerful. However, he did not find anything other than the tombstones. He did not want to absorb the dragon's soul, so looking at these tombstones was like suffering in his heart. This was like a foodie looking at a table full of delicacies, but he could not eat them. This was indescribably cruel. He let out a long sigh and hurriedly turned his head. He did not look at this tombstone forest anymore, and resolutely went down to the 8th floor. If the 8th floor was also full of tombstones and there was nothing else, perhaps after his dragon god technique broke through in the future, he would not continue to wander around here. After all, for a cemetery, it was better to let the ancestors of the dragon clan rest in peace and not disturb them. Moreover, every time he passed by the tombstones and saw all kinds of dragon souls, it required a lot of willpower to resist this temptation. Bang bang bang. He walked down the steps, one step at a time. When he finished the last step, his eyes were empty again. His heart sank. Could it be that the 8th floor was also a tombstone forest? He was not in a hurry to turn around and leave. Since he was here, he would go in and take a look to prevent himself from regretting it in the future. He crossed the threshold and went deep into the barren land. The scene in front of him changed again, and tombstones appeared in front of him. The sense of vicissitudes from these tombstones was even stronger. He reached out and pressed his hand on a tombstone with ease. A dragon's roar sounded, and before he could react, the dragon's roar sounded one after another, resounding through the tombstone forest. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Golden dragon souls flew up from all the tombstones. There were only about 30 tombstones in this tombstone forest, and these 30 dragon souls rose into the sky, which was a magnificent sight. The dragon souls intertwined, connected head to tail, and rotated rapidly. Golden light flickered, and it was so dazzling that he could not open his eyes. Tang Zheng subconsciously covered his eyes with his hand. After a while, the golden light weakened. He finally moved his hand away. Suddenly, his eyes widened. A dragon boat appeared in the sky, shining with golden light. There were lifelike golden dragons carved on the boat, and it was mighty and extraordinary. Author's digression: today was the first time in my life that I received an infusion, and my first time was gone in the hands of the little sister nurse. Chapter 1263. The dragon boat floated in mid-air with an imposing aura. Just the dragon's might emitted from it was enough to make one have the urge to prostrate themselves before it. Tang Zheng frowned. How did the gathering of dragon souls turn into a dragon boat? He did not have time to think too much as the dragon boat flew toward him bit by bit. He subconsciously took a few steps back and looked at the dragon boat in shock. Suddenly, his eyes widened and fixed on the dragon boat. An old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion was standing on the dragon boat. Just now, he was blocked by the dragon boat, so Tang Zheng did not feel it. At this moment, he realized that the dragon's might that made him revere did not come from the dragon boat, but from this old man. When such an old man appeared in the steel forest, Tang Zheng's attention was completely focused as he looked at him with a burning gaze. The old man's gaze was sharp as he looked at Tang Zheng with his divine sense and asked, "You're a human, but you've cultivated the dragon god technique of my dragon clan?" "Yes." Tang Zheng did not hide it. Under the old man's sharp gaze, there was no need to hide it at all. "Wonderful, wonderful." The old man stroked his snow-white beard and clicked his tongue in admiration. Tang Zheng frowned and asked, "What's so wonderful about it?" "You can be a surprise attack and win by surprise," the old man explained. Tang Zheng was even more confused. Surprise attack? Who am I going to deal with? Our common enemy. When the old man said this, hatred flashed in his eyes. It was obvious that he hated this so-called enemy to the core. Tang Zheng thought that the only person who could make the dragon clan hate him to the core was probably the dragon slayer. Could it be that the old man wants me to deal with the dragon slayer? In his impression, whether it was the scene of the battle between the dragon slayer and the dragon clan in the illusion of the Langya pavilion or the golden dragon's description, the dragon slayer was a very powerful existence. Tang Zheng never thought that he would become an enemy of the dragon slayer. With his current cultivation, he did not have the confidence to defeat the dragon slayer. However, this was clearly what the old man meant. Thus, he began to feel uneasy. Elder, you want me to deal with the dragon slayer? In response to Tang Zheng's straightforward question, the old man was gratified and said, you also know about the existence of the dragon slayer, which means that you were sent by the heavens to the dragon clan. You are the best candidate to deal with the dragon slayer. How can I be a match for a dragon slayer? Tang Zheng pointed at his chest and asked. The old man shook his head slowly. Don't belittle yourself. Your potential is far from being realized. You have to believe in yourself. Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. He didn't expect others to think so highly of him. You don't understand me, but you want me to deal with the dragon slayer. Why do you think I agreed? The old man looked at Tang Zheng with a burning gaze and said, you must agree because you are already the target of the dragon slayer. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank as he vaguely guessed something. Your dragon god art has been cultivated to its current level, and you also have a dragon soul. That is the goal of a dragon slayer. The dragon slayer will definitely not let go of a target like you. The old man's answer made all the hairs on Tang Zheng's body stand on end. Although he had guessed this point, hearing it from the old man's mouth still made him feel quite uncomfortable. The old man looked at Tang Zheng's reaction and continued, but there is a huge difference between you and an ordinary dragon. This difference is what makes you a surprise soldier. What's the difference? Tang Zheng's eyes widened in surprise. Although you have a dragon soul, because you are a human, the dragon soul will not appear like the dragon clan. This can also blind the eyes of the dragon slayer, making it difficult for them to find you. Tang Zheng looked pensive as if he had comprehended something. After the dragon slayer absorbs the dragon soul, because the dragon clan will have mutual feelings, the dragon slayer will also have this ability. However, he will not be able to truly sense your existence. At this time, you can catch him off guard and kill him. Your wishful thinking is very good, but with my little bit of cultivation, how can I deal with the dragon slayer? I said before that you have great potential and will become very powerful. You have to believe in yourself. The old man emphasized. Tang Zheng fell into deep thought. Regarding the various actions of the dragon slayer, of course he was not ashamed. However, the other party was so strong. He wanted to seek justice for the dragon clan, but he was powerless. Moreover, the dragon slayer was very far away from him. Where could he go to seek justice for the dragon clan? As if seeing through his thoughts, the old man said, you think too simply. I have a prophecy that the dragon slayer will find you very soon. Tang Zheng's heart trembled. He thought to himself, was it really that mysterious and serious? How could there be a dragon slayer in this world? You cannot believe what I say, but the facts will prove everything. The old man said calmly. Tang Zheng's expression became very serious. He looked at the old man with mixed feelings and said, is there any basis for this? This is the result of gathering the abilities of all the dragon souls in this steel forest. The dragon slayer can sense the dragon clan, and the dragon clan is not a person who will sit still and wait for death. Therefore, in the past, we also researched a method to sense the dragon slayer. There's a method to sense the dragon slayer? This was the first time Tang Zheng heard of this news. The golden dragon did not tell him this. Yes, these are all things that we old things came up with when we were on our deathbed. We did not have time to pass them down to the younger generation. The old man said regretfully. Tang Zheng suddenly understood. No wonder the golden dragon did not know. We can teach you this method so that you can sense the dragon slayer. From then on, you will be in the light and he will be in the dark. It will be even easier for you to win by surprise. Tang Zheng was a little moved. It was not a burden to have more skills. Moreover, The old man said that the dragon slayer was coming. In this critical moment of life and death, how could he let his guard down? Once he had this ability, he could make preparations as soon as possible or avoid it in time. Wasn't the dragon slayer unable to see that he had a dragon soul? This way, wouldn't he be able to easily slip under his nose? Then, when he was unprepared, he could attack the dragon slayer. Perhaps he could really succeed. Senior, please bestow this ability to me. Tang Zheng said sincerely. The old man waved his hand and said, "Don't worry, I have more important things to tell you. You are the first person to come here after so many years. There are some things that I must tell you. Otherwise, those stupid Dragon Clan juniors will never be able to reach this place." Tang Zheng's heart moved. He seemed to have guessed something and asked tentatively, "Do you want to talk about this inverted Lengya pavilion?" The old man looked deeply at Tang Zheng. He could not hide his praise and said, "You are really smart. You actually guessed so much." After a pause, the old man sighed and said, "Yes, I want to tell you about this place. You should know that after the Dragon Clan dies, the dragon soul is not destroyed. The dragon soul is buried with the dragon body. However, back then, the dragon slayer searched everywhere for this kind of dragon soul and absorbed it to improve his strength. This is something that made the entire Dragon Clan very angry and hateful. In the end, we thought of a way, which is to build a large tomb inside the dragon seal and bury the dead Dragon Clan here. Lengya Pavilion is a place that only the Dragon Clan can reach. Even if the Dragon Slayer absorbed the dragon soul, he would not be able to reach Lengya Pavilion. Therefore, it is absolutely safe for the Dragon Clan to be buried here. Moreover, since ancient times, when the Dragon Clan came to Lengya Pavilion, their activity area was all limited to Lengya Pavilion. They were not allowed to set foot in other places. This gave them a good cover. The Dragon Clan is very loyal and would not disobey the orders of their ancestors. Naturally, they would not come here. Back then, in consideration of the safety of all the dragon souls, we naturally did not tell the Dragon Clan that these tombs were buried here. Only people like you who are not part of the Dragon Clan can come here by chance. Therefore, you are the fated person. The Dragon Clan's hope is on you." At that moment, Tang Zheng felt that there was a heavy burden on his shoulders. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "I'm not that powerful." The old man did not force him and continued to talk non-stop. However, we neglected a problem. The Dragon Slayer is a powerhouse. They have absorbed so many dragon souls. Maybe some heaven-defying powerhouse can find a way to enter Lengya Pavilion. There was once a Dragon Slayer who had this extravagant hope, but he did not succeed. However, so many years have passed. Maybe someone will think of a way. We have to be careful. This is the will of the heavens. You came here, so we can be on guard. Only you know the secret of this place. You must not tell anyone else, including the Dragon Clan. From now on, you have an additional responsibility on your shoulders. That is to protect this place and protect these dragon souls from falling into the hands of the Dragon Slayer." Tang Zheng glanced at the tombstones with a heavy heart. Of course, he knew how serious the old man's words would be if they became reality. Although he had only explored the 8th floor, the number of dragon souls had already made him dumbfounded. Once a dragon slayer absorbed so many dragon souls, he could not imagine how powerful he would become. Tang Zheng swallowed his saliva and said with difficulty, "If a dragon slayer comes here, how would I know?" "You don't have to worry about this. In a while, you will be connected to this place. Once a dragon slayer comes here, you will know." Tang Zheng suddenly understood. The old man hesitated and wanted to say something but stopped. Seeing this, Tang Zheng said directly, "If you have something to say, say it." The old man sighed heavily and said, "There is something I have to tell you. Although I don't have to tell you, our Dragon Clan is open and above board. If we don't tell you, it's not what the Dragon Clan would do." Seeing how serious he was, Tang Zheng immediately had an ominous premonition. He said nervously, "I'm all ears." Once you are connected to this place, once the Dragon Slayer breaks through here, if you are unable to stop the Dragon Slayer and allow him to absorb all the dragon souls here, then your life will come to an end. The old man's tone was very heavy, but it was not as heavy as Tang Zheng's heart after hearing this. His expression changed drastically as he looked at the old man in disbelief. If that was the case, wouldn't he be sharing the same fate as this inverted Langya pavilion? Chapter 1264. From old man Zheng's reaction, it was clear that this matter had affected him greatly. 520520XS, La updates quickly, the website page is refreshing, there are few advertisements, no pop-up windows, I like this kind of website the most, I must leave a good review. Novel Tang Zheng hesitated for a moment, then asked hesitantly, is this really necessary? The old man nodded seriously, this is a place where the other dragons have yet to reach. You are the only one here, so you must be connected to this place. Then, once the dragon slayers arrive here, you will be the first to know. Tang Zheng didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Such a heavy responsibility was on his shoulders. This was related to the rise and fall of the dragon race, and even more so to his own business. Of course, you can also refuse and leave this place. Pretend that this never happened and never heard of this matter. The old man couldn't hide his disappointment. Tang Zheng really wanted to say yes and agree, but in the end, he didn't say it. Although he didn't flaunt himself as a noble person, he understood the seriousness of this matter. He cultivated the dragon god technique and was already the target of the dragon slayers. Moreover, as the old man said, once the dragon slayers absorbed the dragon souls in this steel forest, no one would be able to stop them. Did the dragon slayers really only target the dragon race? Not necessarily. Once a person or a race's strength reached a certain level, the corresponding ambition would also expand. They wouldn't just be limited to their current achievements, but would expand outwards. Once the dragon slayers destroyed the dragon race, what would they do? Could it be that they would cease all activities and disappear without a trace? Of course not. Their next target might be other humans, and it might even be Tang Zheng's world. Therefore, whether it was for public or private reasons, he couldn't sit idly by. Moreover, the golden dragon followed him. Once the dragon slayers attacked, the golden dragon would bear the brunt and its life would be in danger. Would he just watch it die? Of course he couldn't. Therefore, in this multiple-choice question, he didn't have a choice at all. He said, I promise you. The old man's eyebrows rose high, and he couldn't hide his surprise, you are deeply righteous, the entire dragon race will be grateful to you. Tang Zheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. If there was another way, maybe I wouldn't have agreed. I'm not as noble as you think. But in the end, you agreed, and I only. The old man didn't nitpick. What do we do next? Once he agreed, Tang Zheng felt a lot more relaxed and relieved of the burden in his heart. The old man said solemnly, the dragon race will not treat you unfairly, and neither will I. This voice seemed to have a magical power, and it lingered in Tang Zheng's mind like a resounding bell, lasting for a long time. Tang Zheng's mind was shaken. He was confused by this voice, and in an instant, his mind calmed down. The old man stood on the dragon boat and turned into a beam of golden light. In an instant, he rushed toward Tang Zheng. This is a gift for you. The old man's voice echoed in his ears. Tang Zheng didn't have time to react before the golden light completely enveloped him. His pupils suddenly widened, and he immediately understood what this meant. The old man and the dragon boat were both condensed from dragon souls, which meant that these golden lights were all dragon souls, and they were the dragon souls of this steel forest. Last time, he accidentally absorbed a dragon soul, which benefited him greatly. This time, he absorbed so many dragon souls in one go. He couldn't imagine what kind of reaction there would be. He became excited, and his eyes even turned red. The old man's gift couldn't be said to be light, and it far exceeded Tang Zheng's expectations. He originally thought that the old man would give him a few pointers, but it wasn't this heavy gift. Immediately, he felt the burden on his shoulders become heavier. He temporarily suppressed his fluctuating emotions and quietly felt the feeling of the dragon's soul entering his body. An ancient text appeared in his mind, and he only skimmed through it once before he understood the meaning of this text. It turned out that this text was about how to sense the existence of dragon slayers. In fact, this was the same principle as how dragon slayers could sense the existence of dragons. Since dragon slayers could sense the existence of dragons based on dragon souls, then they could do the opposite. If dragon slayers had too many dragon souls in their bodies, then dragons could naturally follow the map and sense the existence of dragon slayers. It is indeed amazing. This principle is easy to understand, but it is not easy to find the corresponding method to sense it. Therefore, according to what the old man said, it was a method that was finally summed up by a group of people. It is just that there is no time to pass it on to the next generation. Tang Zheng was in awe. This method wasn't difficult, and Tang Zheng understood it after pondering for a while. Then, his attention was firmly attracted by the dragon's soul that was like a flood and ferocious beast. The strength of a dragon's soul was not what ordinary people could imagine. After the golden light entered his body, it turned into dragon souls, and there were dozens of them in total. The dragon souls followed the 8 extraordinary meridians, limbs, and bones, and rushed to every part of his body. Ah! He raised his head and let out a high-pitched cry that sounded like a dragon's roar. The feeling of the dragon's soul swimming in his meridians was not good. After all, every dragon's soul represented a powerful energy, and his meridians were only so wide. The dragon's soul crashed in his meridians, as if it was going to break through his meridians. Tang Zheng thought bitterly, the old man really dared to make a move. This gift was very generous, and he wasn't afraid that he wouldn't be able to bear it and would directly die. Then wouldn't his plan be ruined? Of course, this thought only flashed through his mind, and he had no choice but to focus on dealing with the dragon's soul. He hurriedly activated the Dragon God technique, trying to use the technique to comfort or guide the dragon's soul. Sure enough, this method worked. The dragon's soul immediately became less restless. Under the guidance of the Dragon God technique, a few of the dragon's soul actually settled down in his meridians. He had a total of 9 main meridians, and these dragon souls were all immersed in the main meridians. When those few dragon souls settled down, the dragon souls settled down one after another. Even so, the energy contained in the dragon soul was too powerful. After settling down, his meridians could not completely absorb it. His meridians could explode at any time. If that happened, even if he did not die, he would lose a layer of skin. He gritted his teeth and held on. This time, if he did not die, he would live. Once he crossed this hurdle, his gains would definitely be proportional to the hardships and pain he experienced. Although he was in the dragon seal, in reality, his body and the body in the dragon seal corresponded to each other. In reality, he was sitting cross-legged, and a faint golden light appeared on his body. Each of the main meridians contained a powerful dragon soul. The golden dragon was attached to his body and was the first to discover this abnormality. Especially since it was originally a dragon, it was very sensitive to dragon souls. It had an unbelievable change, and only one voice echoed in its mind, "Why are there so many dragon souls in his body?"